Прийшли окупанти до нас в Україну, форма новенька, воєнні машини та трохи поплавився їх інвентар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російські танкісти сховались з кущі, щоб лаптем посьорбати довбані щі, та трохи у чах перегрівся навар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Приперли зі сходу до нас барани для восстановлення
великої страни.
Найкращий пастух баранячих отар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Їх доводи всяке озброєння різне, потужні ракети, машини залізні, у нас на всі доводи є коментар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Вони захопити хотіли нас зразу, а ми зачаїли на орків образу з російських бандитів, робить примар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Російська поліція справи заводить, там пивцю рашистів ніяк не знаходить, хто винен, що в нашому полі глухар. Байрактар, Байрактар. Веде пропаганду кремлівський урод, слова пропаганди ковтає народ, тепер нове слово знає цар.
Байрактар.
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 Yes.
The Leaf Spring Army sends its regards.
Русский военный корабль. Предлагаю сложить оружие и сдаться. Русский военный корабль, иди нахуй.
Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 779 of the news. And it's good to see you all once again. And today, Iran is going crazy, and Russia's going crazy too. And it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to be covering the past 24 hours of the news of the war in Ukraine and the ongoing conflicts inside of the Middle East, as we've been getting a lot of news out of both regions today, showing that the Russians are apparently in a state of crumbling, at least within the Russian Federation, based off of information that we're able to find from military stockyard piles that have been compiled across the entirety of the Russian Federation up till the present day. And we've also seen that the Russians are sending a nuclear warning to the West today in the test of a T'Pol-M intercontinental ballistic missile. Really quickly, though, I do have to make the quick note that it was not carrying a warhead, but nevertheless, the T'Pol-M is literally designed to carry a nuclear warhead. There is no such thing as a conventional warhead in a T'Pol-M nuclear missile, meaning that it is clearly a signal to the West that the Russians have operational nuclear weapons that are ready to use at a given notice. We will be covering all of that news tonight, and it is huge news to cover, but of course, many of y'all have been absolutely going crazy in the chat, and I've been very, very relieved to see this. A lot of y'all loved the brand new song that has been made for the Lee Spring Army called The White and Gold, which is a possible candidate for an anthem for the Lee Spring Army. I'm not going to say that it is the official anthem of the Lee Spring Army yet, but many people have been bringing it up in the chat that it was an incredibly good song and might even be anthem worthy for the Lee Spring Army. Let us know in the comments section if you really did like that song enough and whether y'all would want it to be the anthem of the Lee Spring Army, because if so, it will be the anthem and it will be permanently included in the intro each and every night. But moving on from that major news, it is time for us to move on into the Russian Federation itself, or actually, more so, It's actually time for us to move into the Russian news, but in the very northern part of the Middle East, just to the northern territories of Iran and the northern areas of Iraq. There was something interesting that happened today that was very odd. It was a very odd phenomenon, and we got to say that it is one that we found out just a little while later was not an unidentified flying object like many were reporting. It was in fact a test from the Kasputin Yar test range in the Astrakhan Oblast of the Topol-M intercontinental ballistic missile. The Topol-M, if I can pull one up right here for y'all, is a very interesting missile system. It is one of the few that is actually a vehicle born in the entire world. These vehicles, the Topol-M, the RT-2PM2, travels around with a Topol-M missile mounted in the silo above the truck throughout the entirety of the Russian Federation, ready to fire off these intercontinental ballistic missiles at a moment's notice. The reason behind the use of these vehicles is that Russia's landmass is incredibly large, making up nearly 15% of the world's landmass. Because of this, the Topol-M has a large amount of territory that it can cover on its own and make sure that the West never really knows where these Topol-M missiles are at any given moment. This makes it a lot more difficult to knock out these silos of intercontinental ballistic missiles if the West was to launch some sort of a preemptive strike, at least in the Russians' minds, and would give them an ability to at least respond in some form by firing off these missiles. There is no mistake, it is an intercontinental ballistic missile designed entirely for the delivery of a nuclear warhead. Some people have tried to mitigate the test today by saying that it was not equipped with a nuclear warhead, which makes a lot of sense. You usually don't launch a nuclear warhead on top of a missile that you're testing. You usually test the missile itself. But it is a delivery platform for a nuclear weapon. There is no such thing as a non-nuclear Topol-M missile. You do not fire missiles of this size without them having a nuclear warhead on board the missile when it is actually launched towards a foreign country. And the fact that they launched this Topol-M missile is clearly showing the West that the Russians are trying to send a message that they are nuclear capable, nuclear armed, and nuclear ready, and that they will be able to strike countries like the United States, even if the public thought, like many people here on this channel think, that their nuclear weapons are probably underfunded and probably not able to operate. They are making sure to let us all know that they do have operational nuclear weapons that could end up striking the West. We were able to get 2 videos today out of the northern part of the Middle East showing the launches from Iran and Iraq, which could be seen all the way from the northern fringes of these countries, pretty much on the other side of the Caspian Sea. What you're seeing up there is the white streak of the missile's propellant as it continues to fly further and further out of the Earth's atmosphere and on into its suborbital trajectory in its test flight.
Now they're saying they saw this from where? Where's this video taken?
This was taken in northern Iran, near to the area of Bandar Anzali.
Now, see, I did the actual geography on it earlier today, and to see where that missile was launched and to see it from Iran, that's 2,400 kilometers away. And I was wondering earlier, is it really even possible to see that launch from that far away? Because that is quite some distance.
And let me really quickly pull up the Kasputin Yar test range, because I understood that it was pretty close to the shore of the Caspian Sea. And so let me go to Kasputin Yar here on the map. And let's zoom out really quickly and try and get a better look at this. So this is actually on the very northern end of the Astrakhan Oblast. So let's quickly get out a ruler here and measure this in imperial units in miles, because 2,400 kilometers, Matthew, hit me like whiplash. I was like, 2,400 kilometers? So it's about 800 miles away, meaning that this is about the distance from Birmingham, Alabama to Washington, D.C., or better yet, from London all the way to Berlin. Well, actually in between Berlin and Warsaw for the most part.
Well, see, Enforcer, you're not alone, though, because earlier today on Twitter, I saw basically every OSINT channel saying this. They were saying that they saw the video taken from Iran, and that was footage of the actual Russian ICBM launch. And I put down in the comments below those posts, I said, are you sure this is really what they're seeing here? Because that's a very, very far away. Never saw a response from anybody, but I have my doubts about that.
I would have to say that is fairly interesting when you really think about the absolute scale of distance. But nevertheless, we did get another video from Iraq, northern Iraq, from what we've heard, into the area of what would be called Kurdistan, where we did see the streak of the missile after it apparently had been fired. And we also got to see as well a video that looks very similar. I mean, this looks incredibly similar to a SpaceX Falcon 9 or Falcon Heavy launch that would be launched from Cape Canaveral, at least with how that looks. So it is possible that it was the T'Pol-M intercontinental ballistic missile that left these traces in the sky. But that's the end of that clip right there, but once again showing us at least the visual remnants of the actual attack itself. But really quickly, to take y'all over to Kasputin Yar is up here in the area of Znamensk. And let me see if I can make sure to find the exact location. So, I believe that this is actually the testing facilities right here. You can also see one of the launch sites right there, or one of the launching pads more so. And you can see that it's actually a fairly large facility within the northern area of the Astrakhan Oblast, just to the east of the Volga River, pretty much inside of the desert for the most part. But you can see other facilities as well. That's actually a small village. And I'm trying to find the additional facilities that exist throughout the area. This appears to be one of the larger facilities that exists for the Kasputin Yar testing range. So it was actually fired from somewhere in this area. And there's Kasputin Yar right there, just to make sure that we can confirm the exact location of the town. But beyond that, the rocket launch is, well, the missile launch more so, is a very serious thing. Because while it was not carrying a warhead, and the Russians really haven't released a lot of information about the launch, like the splashdown zone of the debris of the missile itself, or anything along those lines, this is a very serious and very dangerous thing to show that the Russians are once again continuing to test intercontinental ballistic missiles. Things like smaller nuclear weapons, tactical nuclear weapons, if you want to call them that. I was trying to come up with something to say along those lines. Intermediate range ballistic missiles or anything along those categories is not as escalatory as testing an intercontinental ballistic missile. Because an intercontinental ballistic missile is designed to hit the longest ranges physically possible. There are a few Russian missiles that can reach all the way from Russia to the United States, and the T'Pol-M is one of those variants of missile. The fact that they tested this is clearly the Russians trying to send a message to the United States that they do have T'Pol-Ms that are operational, and that they still, even now, can continue to aim their missiles at the United States and have a high likelihood of them being launched and hitting America. Whether people believe that a large amount of the nuclear arsenal of Russia is operable or inoperable is beyond the question. It's really a point that the Russians are trying to send this sort of a message to the United States and the public of the United States by launching this nuke. And a lot of people have been, well, not really launching the nuke, but launching the nuclear missile. But beyond that, people have been talking about this test launch as it occurred today with a T'Pol-M, and a lot of people are talking about the timing may actually be deliberate. There's a lot of reasons why it most likely would be deliberate. The fact that there's currently a U.S. election going on, the fact that there's also a large amount of instability in the world, the fact that the Russians are pretty much on a ticking time bomb as far as their economy and their ability to run the economy is concerned, and not only that, the continuing crippling infrastructure of the Russian Federation that cannot be fixed because the Russians are funneling all of their funds into the war in Ukraine. There is a good argument to be made that the timing is completely convenient with this launch, and it was supposed to send a message to the West and continue to make sure that they do not support Ukraine out of fear of a Russian reprisal, and then lead Ukraine to once again be in an incredibly tough quagmire due to a lack of Western support. A lot of people have been talking about that, and some other people are saying that that's not the case, and it's just that the missile test was planned to happen today, and it's just normal timing. But a lot of people have put in some input on this and really have given their 2 cents. And Matthew, I want to know, what are people thinking about this, and what are you really thinking about it as well?
Okay, so we asked the audience. We said today Russia conducted that successful ICBM test launch at Kasputin Yar, and is the timing odd? 80% said the timing is certainly deliberate by Russia, and 11% said no, the timing is absolutely normal, and 5% weren't really sure and they needed more information. And to me, I am solidly within the 80% camp. I think the timing was very deliberate because it was launched during the middle of a huge major escalation which is imminent in the Middle East, as well as major events happening inside of Ukraine. And this launch was designed to cause a fear around the world that Russia might be doing something drastic. And even though it was just a test, it is sending a message, like the enforcer said, to all the allied nations around the world that Russia is, in their minds, not playing around, and they do have some nukes lying around here and there, which may be rusty, but they have them lying around. So I think they did this on purpose to cause chaos, and, it kind of caused chaos a little bit, but at the end of the day, it was just a test launch, and nothing really came out of it. But I think they made their point to some countries. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that the timing is incredibly deliberate, considering everything that's going on around the world right now. This would lead me mostly to believe that the Russians are once again trying to wield a nuclear hammer to try and get what they want, or at least lead some politicians or officials of foreign nations to try and lean more into appeasement of the Russians than trying to get their own strategic aims asserted within the region. I believe that that's most likely what they're trying to do with this missile launch, because it is a clear message. I see some people saying that most of the missiles may not work. But the thing is that it's not about the missiles working. It's kind of like saying, oh, the mafia came by and threw a brick through your window, but the reality is that none of these mafia guys would actually come and take out a hit on you. It doesn't really matter whether they take a hit out on you or not. The message has been sent, and it's an incredibly ominous and concerning message that the Russians made by launching this missile. They're trying to make it clear, whether the arsenal is operational or not, which is beyond the question, that they have nuclear weapons that can strike the United States, and that they will strike the United States, and certainly still possess the ability to do something like that if they ever wanted to. That was the point of the message that they're trying to send with this missile launch, and that's what makes it incredibly concerning and incredibly serious that the Russians are doing this. I would have to say that, in my opinion, I would believe that the United States should probably respond to this fairly swiftly by conducting an intercontinental ballistic missile test of our own, almost right after theirs, maybe a month or two later, so that way we can make sure to let the Russians know that we also, too, have nuclear weapons, are entirely capable of hitting the Russian Federation, and that if the time ever arose, we could hit them. Because it seems as though the Russians continue to forget, at least within their government circles, that the U.S. is a nuclear-capable country, and unlike them, we do have the funding to probably have most, if not all, of our nuclear arsenal entirely operational at this point. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion, and this comes at the exact time as trouble and chaos continues to reign strong over pretty much the entirety of the Russian Federation. We got news today that the entire city of Orenberg has been declared to be evacuated by the Russian Federation, and that they will not be allowing anyone to stay inside of the city due to the up-and-coming floodwaters. Orenberg is a city with a population of 500,000 people. It is a massive city by most measures, incredibly large. This city is actually as big as Mariupol in pre-war population numbers. And the Russians sounded the evacuation alarm today. We can actually hear the sirens sounding over the city in this clip right here. But nevertheless, this is pretty serious. We don't know how the Russian authorities are going to try and evacuate nearly 500,000 people out of Orenberg alone, because not only that, Orsk and Novotroysk have also been seriously affected by the unbelievable floodwaters that have been coming down the Ural River from the busted dam further north and has been flooding the entire area. The city of Orsk itself, which is actually pronounced Orks, literally, I'm not even kidding. If you were to actually pronounce it normally, it's actually Orks. But beyond that, let me make sure to get the population of Orsk, and let me type that in properly, not Orks, Orsk, and Orsk population. For some reason, it doesn't want to give me a quick and easy answer. But beyond that, Orsk has a population of 239,000 people. So just inside of the cities of Orsk and Orenberg alone, there is a whopping 750,000 people that the Russians would have to evacuate out of the floodplains. This is probably going to overwhelm the Russian responders, which are trying to operate in the area right now. Of course, the Russian responders are already greatly decreased in numbers because most of the armed forces, which is usually what would be used in this kind of an emergency situation, are currently tied up in Ukraine. And not only that, the Russian authorities are incredibly corrupt and most likely incompetent, leading to an even decreased amount from the already minuscule amount of responders that would be there. There's probably going to be an even smaller amount beyond that. So going off of this, I would have to say the Russians are probably going to be dealing with an unbelievable humanitarian crisis, the likes of which has never really been seen in recent history. because they just simply do not have the ability to respond to the problem. They wouldn't have had to respond to it in the first place if they hadn't had a major infrastructure collapse on the dam further north on the Ural River, but nevertheless, it is Russia, and we can only hope so much of the Russians, and one of those things is that, well, one of the things that we can't hope on the Russians for is that they'll be competent enough to stop themselves from having their own humanitarian crisis, much like the one they manufactured inside of Ukraine by blowing up the Novokakhovka Dam. Moving on from that, we are now going into the area of Kazan to make sure that we cover something else that is incredibly shocking. A Twitter user was able to put together a spreadsheet today, or more so a compiling, of all of the tanks that are inside of Russian supply yards throughout the Russian Federation. They were able to compare the numbers from September of 2023, 6 months ago, to the numbers at the end of March of 2024, just a few days ago. And the numbers are incredibly shocking from what this user was able to find. And I'm going to be reading them off to y'all because they're unbelievable. So to quickly break down the chart, we see right here September of 2023, these are the numbers right here. Then we see March of 2024, which are in the second column. And then we can actually see the overall change across the entirety of the Russian Federation from September of 2023 up until pretty much the present day. This is also broken down in categories of main battle tanks. The T-90, the T-80, the T-72, T-64, T-62, and T-54s and T-55s are all represented on this chart and are showing the complete number of vehicles that they have throughout the Russian Federation. The Russians no longer have any operational T-90s in storage. All of them have been moved into frontline service in Ukraine, all 50 of them that were seen on satellite pictures. Not only that, currently, there are 140 T-80s that have been sent from the stockyards into Ukraine and are currently operating there. It is something interesting to know that 10 main battle tanks make up a battalion tactical group of the Russian Federation. That is your basic combat unit that would use these kinds of main battle tanks, and it is very interesting to see that they have lost, just in these two categories alone, around, let's see here, let me think, it's close to 19, it is actually 19 battalion tactical groups of tanks, and they're having to replace them with an additional 19 battalion tactical groups worth of tanks just over 6 months in the T-90 and T-80 categories alone. But what is the true whopper is the amount of T-72s that they have moved out of the supply yards and into Ukraine. They have moved 885 of them that can be confirmed on satellite footage out of the supply yards and into Ukraine. That is an unbelievable number. That is actually the largest one that we saw on the list. And if we were to divide that by 10, and let me make sure that we can get the correct number here, that means that an entire 88, really 89 battalion tactical groups have had to be entirely replaced in their armor figures off of these T-72s alone. It is an unbelievable figure. This is actually unfathomable. Just including the T-72s and the T-80s and T-90s alone, the Russians have pretty much had to replace a whole 200, well actually something more like 100 battalion tactical groups worth of tanks just over 6 months alone. We've also seen that they've gotten rid of all of their T-64s. There are no T-64s left in any part of the Russian Federation. They have all been moved into Ukraine. And we can also see that apparently some T-62s and T-54s have been pulled out of the graveyards and apparently are making it into the supply yards to be refitted and put into service, as an additional 160 of them have appeared. Then an additional 790 unknown vehicles are starting to appear in the supply yards. We're not really sure if these are armored vehicles or just SPGs, armored cars, APCs. We don't really know what this number is, but overall, the complete change in the overall supply yard number is a deficit of 375 armored vehicles over 6 months. If we were to exclude the 790 unknown vehicles that have moved into the supply yards, that means that the Russians have actually lost close to 1,000 armored vehicles, 1,000 tanks over 6 months. That is insane. You can't even fathom those kinds of numbers. That means that multiple tanks are being destroyed on a daily basis, and it doesn't appear that it's going to be slowing down anytime soon or improving anytime later. This is crazy.
You know what's worse than that is I'm seeing some analysts out there who are looking at the data that we're looking at right here, and they're doing the numbers, and they're saying that Russia only has enough equipment left to last through 2024, and that may be one of the reasons why they're blitzing so hard right now, and especially trying to ramp up during the summer, is because they're basically trying to pull this off while they still have equipment left. Because if 2024 ends, they're going to be pretty damn low on stuff, and they're going to be out of luck.
Absolutely, that is completely accurate. And a lot of those analysts are dead on the nail. And not only is the military running out of equipment, but the Russian economy is running out of money. The Russians are running out of gas. There's a whole lot of things that they're most likely going to run out of by the time of the end of this year that is leading them to want to rush the war and try and end it as soon as possible. That's why we're seeing that they're conducting all of these massive attacks, missile attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure, so that way they can try and force Ukraine out of the war before the Russians inevitably collapse from all of the pressures that are now coming down the pipe. This isn't going to collapse Russia tomorrow. By no means. This will collapse Russia most likely by the end of this year, when all of these things start to compound into one massive singular problem that will affect the Russian public itself. If the Russians lose armored vehicles, and regardless of how efficient or inefficient armored vehicles are in these current conflicts, one thing's for certain, if they run out of those armored vehicles, there is no way for them to conduct successful offensives beyond that. To even try and get soldiers forward on the line at this point, it does require an armored personnel carrier or some kind of a vehicle to get those guys forward. If they don't even have tanks to support the APCs, which are pretty much sitting ducks for the FPV drones, the Ukrainians will be able to easily pick off the incoming assaults by the Russians, far easier than even they are right now, and probably lead to another unfortunate loss for the Russians. A very, very unfortunate loss indeed. And we will all cry heartily for all the Russians who wasted their lives in vain to gain absolutely nothing, and then to send their country into probably the worst economic depression that we'll ever see in world history. But moving on from that and out of the area of Russia, before we get on into the rest of the news in Bryansk in London, well, really Portsmouth in the UK, we have to travel south into the Middle East, because there is a lot going on in this area. A load. This wasn't included in the title because people, I don't know why people just have a very hard time getting this. There's a cap on the amount of characters that we have in the title. We can only put so much in it before YouTube actually doesn't allow us to even publish the title. 100 characters is the limit. So we have an incredibly small amount of room to actually get in the major parts of the news that is happening today. And for that reason, we were only able to include the Russian news of the nuclear warning that we also talked about in today's video a little bit earlier. Sadly, we weren't able to put in the title everything that's going on in the Middle East, because we are getting a lot of news that is once again showing that conflict is inevitable, although I'm not going to say that it's going to happen within the next 24 hours or several hours. We have said that several times on this channel based off of U.S. Intelligence reports and U.S. official statements, and we have taken their word for it, and it appears that the attacks have never happened within those timetables. We are hearing that once again today, and I want to make that incredibly clear, that once again, U.S. officials are saying today the attack is going to happen within hours, but we're not going to be reporting that as a face value thing, considering that that's been said so many times, and so far, it's never really panned out to be entirely true. But we're now going to be moving on into the Middle Eastern news, as we are seeing it today, and we have been able to hear that apparently 100 intermediate-range ballistic missiles have been prepared by Iran, according to U.S. officials, for a possible strike on Israel. This is an incredibly large amount of missiles. This is actually about twice the size of some of the largest Russian missile attacks that have happened on Ukraine this year. This would be an overwhelming missile attack if that was all to be fired in one single wave, and it would actually be pretty tough. Israel might actually be really hard-pressed to defend themselves against all of those incoming missiles and air targets, and we can see that already the Iranians have apparently sent down word that the attacks will be happening, as we did see that Hezbollah conducted an attack of their own today on northern Israel by launching 50 rockets into the region. The Iron Domes, of course, responded and shot down all 50 incoming rockets, but it's now believed that this is most likely a joint Iranian and Hezbollah strategy to try and whittle down the amount of available rockets that Israel has to respond to the Iranian attack, so that way when the Iranian attack goes forward, the Israelis may not have enough ammunition to be able to try and stop the incoming Iranian missiles and drones.
Wow.
Man, this guy's like, this is funny.
He's having a fun time.
Gotta respect that, though, in the midst of all this chaos, to have a little laugh.
תראו כמה!
Now you see the Iron Domes continuing to fly in. We also heard that apparently the Patriot batteries of Israel were also in operation this night, intercepting the rockets as well.
וואי, תראו כמה! יואו! תיזהרו מהנפלים, זה לא מעלינו.
Here's another angle.
You know, I had heard earlier today that these drones heading into Israel were already pretty much overwhelming the Iron Dome as it is now.
Actually, from what we heard, I believe these were Qassam rockets. I'm not really sure if they were drones or rockets, but their trajectory is really high in altitude. But beyond that, I did also hear that as well, that apparently it was starting to overwhelm Israeli air defenses, because Israeli air defenses are incredibly competent as long as there is a running stream of a moderate amount of missile fire coming from outside of Israel. They're incredibly competent and able to deal with the threat. But if there is a large single launch of rockets into the territory, then that's usually where we see that the Israeli air defenses get overwhelmed. And that really is actually the only way to overwhelm most air defenses, is by having a sheer volume of vehicles and equipment trying to enter the airspace. You can actually see that these tactics were used for really one of the first times ever back in World War II during the strategic bombing campaigns that were conducted by both the Germans as well as the United Kingdom and the United States as well. Whenever they would conduct bombing campaigns, they would usually conduct it with hundreds of bombers flying in a single wave. A lot of people have actually been under the misconception that that's because bombing was inaccurate at the time, and for that reason, they would have to send in multiple bombers so that way, hopefully, they could drop enough bombs onto a single city that they would hit the strategic targets that they were going for. The reality is actually incredibly different. Even in World War II, bombers were incredibly accurate, and even from altitudes of tens of thousands of feet, a B-17 Flying Fortress could usually drop a bomb within 50 feet of its actual intended target, which by even modern standards, that would be a fairly precise bombing, especially for a dumb bomb. But the thing about that is that if you sent in a single B-17, it would be easily destroyed by German air defense in the Second World War. The Germans would, of course, mobilize their Focke-Wulf 190s or Bf-109s, which are usually their high-altitude interceptors, and attempt to shoot down that B-17. And not only that, the city's air defenses would probably also get a pretty good crack if all of them were really focal pointed onto that single B-17 in shooting it down. So instead of conducting a precision bombing like they could have in World War II, which would have never happened because they would have shot down the aircraft before it even made it over the city, they then decided that the best thing to do was to mobilize pretty much an entire army air force and then fly the entire thing into Germany, so that way at least a large amount, probably 80% to 90% of those bombers would end up making it to their target and hitting that city, and hopefully hitting the strategic infrastructure inside as well. Also, another cool thing that no one knows about is that usually one B-17 within this massive cloud of bombers were really a Lancaster for the British or an HE-111 for the Germans. But particularly for America, one B-17 would actually turn on its northern bomb site, and it would conduct a precision bombing out of this entire cloud of hundreds of B-17s. But all the other hundreds of B-17s would not do that. They would fly directly over the city and just drop the bombs onto the city, hoping that it would also hit something incredibly serious or important within. But that's pretty much the same way that modern air attacks work with rockets and missiles. It's not really about having one missile that can hit a precise target, at least as far as getting through the air defenses. It's more about having an absolute complete volume, the highest volume you can possibly possess, fired into the region at a single time, and hope that the air defense might not be able to keep up with shooting down all of these incoming air targets. So that's really what what Hezbollah tried to conduct today, and we were already starting to hear some very silent reports that apparently the Iron Dome was possibly being overrun even with just 50 targets airborne. Man, those explosions are very crisp sounding. It's like a very clean slap.
Very cinematic. You could use it in a Michael Bay movie.
And the
Yeah,
you
could use it in the.
Man, you can use
Whoa,
it in
whoa,
the
whoa, whoa,
McBay
Jack!
movie.
Don't do it, Jack! I mean, get back!
Also, here's another interception, which starts off with the best yo ever. But anyways, here's the clip.
Yo!
יואו, יואו, תראי כמה באוויר. וואו. עוד, תראי כמה. יואו.
Man, I thought they were about to start rapping. Yo.
Man, honestly, it sounds like they're in a sports game. They're like, yo! They're like, yo, no way.
יואו, זה מפסיק.
Also, why in
Wait
the
a minute,
world is
isn't
there a
that a Japanese
Japanese
sound, the
alarm
J
going
alert?
off? Yeah, that's why I said it in the video earlier. I was like, there's a Japanese alarm going off in the middle of the video, which is weird because they're in Israel. But anyways, they're about to have a tsunami and an earthquake hit. It's like, what the hell?
קילל אבל לא אצלנו. וואו. ברור. יואו, זה לא נגמר. אחותי זה...
Yo!
Yo.
כן. יואו.
Yo! But with that, that's the end of the clip, and then we get to hear the clearest yo again. But nevertheless, we are going to be moving on from that little bit of news right there in northern Israel, which it was great to see that the Iron Dome was able to intercept all of those targets. And meanwhile, within the Iranian-Jordanian border region, we were able to hear that apparently Israel will get support from the United States as U.S. air defense forces within the region are starting to move into this region or area of the border. This is an incredibly good place for U.S. air defense to move. It is going to be approximately about 180 miles away from the Israeli border, meaning that there's pretty much going to be an entire first wave of air defense that this Iranian attack has to make it through before it makes it to Israel itself. Meaning that the incoming air attack from Israel, even if the incoming air attack from Iran, even if Israel's air defenses were to possibly be overwhelmed, they probably would not be, because a lot of those air targets would probably be intercepted and shot down by the United States inside of Jordan before they would make it to Israel itself. This is incredibly good news to hear, and we were able to hear this from Jokerman Intel today, and apparently coming from a Middle Eastern account. Sadly, I do not know the name, because I can't really read Arabic that well, but moving on from that and into our next clip, we were also able to hear that Western air forces are moving into the region as well, once again showing that the West is certainly preparing for what is to come. But a lot of people are talking about this, and a lot of people are saying that an attack might happen, an attack might not happen. A lot of people really are kind of in between the two. But nevertheless, Matthew, what are you thinking about it, and what is everyone else thinking about it as well?
All right, so we asked the audience, we said, what is everyone's thoughts about U.S. intel observing Iran moving at least 100+ cruise missiles and also drones into place and making final preparations for a major attack on Israel? And it looks like 50% said Iran is actually going to attack this time. 29% said Iran is saber-rattling big league. 15% said it seems bad, maybe an attack soon, and 7% said unsure. And on this one, I got to say that it looks to me like Iran is actually going to attack. I know some people are tired of hearing that because Iran has played a fool when it comes to basically saying, oh, we're going to, no, we're not going to do it. We're going to do it. No, we're not going to do it. They're actually going to do it this time. It sounds like the intelligence community in the United States is pretty certain about that. Now we have the U.S. president coming out and making direct statements that it's going to happen and that they should not do it. And we have our ships and also our planes racing toward the region to get ready to respond in case Israel gets overwhelmed. So to me, you don't do stuff like that unless it's actually about to happen. And Iran's been getting really wild with their statements this morning especially. They're starting to tell the U.S. to basically F off in that exact language right there diplomatically. It's kind of wild to say that. So Iran's getting wild. They're working themselves up into a heat of passion here, and I think they're about to act. It looks like it's going to happen pretty soon. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that it most likely will probably go into an actual conflict with the Iranians attacking Israel. There is just so much preparation that is happening in the Middle East for this buildup for an attack that it appears to be quite clear at this point that it will happen. That's at least my interpretation of events, because there's a lot going on here that would lead me to believe that an attack is inevitable still over an attack not happening. If an attack was not going to happen, we probably would see that U.S. forces and Israeli forces would not be conducting the kind of actions they are right now in preparation for what's to come. We also probably would not see Hezbollah forces firing a large rocket attack into northern Israel, because the last time that something like that happened on this scale from Hezbollah was a very long time ago, months ago, even almost 5 or 6 months ago last year. Going off of all of that, I would have to say I believe that an attack is most likely inevitable within the region, and they're probably going to have to hopefully prepare and hopefully be well prepared for when the Iranian attack actually does come. And hopefully they will be able to shoot down most of the air targets combined in between the United States forces, the Israelis, and also the British. Because moving back into the news, we were able to hear that Western air forces are moving into the region. A number of F-15s moved from a RAF base inside of England today and are apparently going to be moving on down to the Middle East. We've also heard that they're being accompanied by several E-3 sentries from various different countries within the Western world, which are apparently going to be providing some early warning or extra early warning eyes in the skies to protect the forces within the region and also to protect Israel as well from the upcoming attack. We also heard that British fighters will also be moving into the area as well, although I most likely believe that if any British air action was to be taken, it would mostly be taken by the Royal Air Force Air Wing within Akatori on the island of Cyprus against Iranian forces inside of Iran, or most likely the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps inside of Syria and Iraq. Nevertheless, we also got to hear that U.S. warships are apparently rapidly moving into position to try and deal with the upcoming the Iranian and Houthi and Hezbollah threat. It is so hard to get those names right because they both start with an I, so I'm like just like a coin flip away from saying the opposite for everything. I don't know if that happens to you, Matthew, but nevertheless, according to Apex, the U.S. is rushing warships into position to protect Israel and American forces in the region in case of Iranian attacks. The Wall Street Journal reports. Man, I'm telling you, man, I'm sitting here trying to make sure. I was like, Iranian? I was like, did I say the Israeli? But beyond that, it is very interesting to hear this, and not only that, we were able to hear that the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower is now moving into the area of the Eastern Mediterranean again, apparently steaming north at high speeds up through the Red Sea to make it back towards Israel as a show of deterrence against Iran. I believe that this is kind of odd. I believe it would be more show of a sign of deterrence if that aircraft carrier was in the Gulf of Oman or within the area of the Arabian Sea, which would be a lot closer to Iran than the Eastern Mediterranean, or at least make it seem to Iranian commanders that that aircraft carrier is more poised to strike Iran than just kind of sitting around Israel. But nevertheless, it is incredibly interesting to see that they are once again doing their thing and making sure that the Iranians know that they are ready at a moment's notice if the Iranians are to attack Israel. But moving on...
And, you know, also another thing as well is we're going to be relying on those aircraft carriers much more than we were going to do previously, because today Kuwait and also I believe it was Qatar said we cannot use their airfields or air bases to launch attacks on Iran if we decided to do that. They backed out of that and said they're not going to facilitate it. So that's going to hamper us slightly, not a whole bunch, but slightly, if we actually decide to respond to Iran.
I would say so, but most of the time, whenever we conduct strikes in the Middle East, usually our aircraft take off from the airfields inside of Saudi Arabia, or from inside of, I believe, Jordan in a few rare instances, but mostly Saudi Arabia. So I don't think we'll be that greatly affected, but still, that is a little interesting here. The reason why the Kuwaitis and the Qataris are most likely making these decisions is that they probably do not want to become the possible target of retaliatory strikes from Iran, although they are not on good terms with the Iranians. So still, I gotta say, a little weak-willed by the Kuwaitis and the Qataris, but still, nevertheless, it is something that they are ending up doing, and of course, on a diplomatic level, the United States has to respect their statements that they do not want attacks launched on Iran from their own territories. Moving on from that news, and on out of the Middle East, because that's really most of the major news we have there today, and back in Russia, we were able to see that a major Russian military warehouse caught on fire inside of the Bryansk Oblast, apparently burning almost completely to the ground without a single fire brigade being nearby to really stop the blaze. The fire was huge. It was absolutely roasting, toasting even. And I gotta say, it is wonderful to know that such things happen inside of Russia still. Look at that. It's beautiful.
It's a big fire, man. It would make even the best Russian arsonists, blядь, it would make them quiver. Oh dear, look at the fire.
Blядь. But I get to say, this is something incredibly nice. It's toasting and burning quite nicely. A lot like a certain YouTube community made up of hot dog. But beyond that, we're going to be moving on from the news inside the Russian Federation and on over into the area of Portsmouth in the United Kingdom, as we were able to hear today that two British minesweepers that have been slated for a handover to the Ukrainian Navy for their use in the future are currently moored in Portsmouth and are making ready for their trip all the way through the North Atlantic on into the Mediterranean and then finally towards the Ukrainian coast. We are able to see that there is already a Ukrainian naval naval ensign flying over the vessel on the right side of the screen. You can see it right up there in the top corner. Very cool. That's actually pretty neat. You can also see the British flag flying alongside it as well as they're preparing to get these ships underway and get them on their voyage towards Ukraine. They most likely will not be able to get into Ukrainian hands and used during the war, but after the war is over, these vessels, these minesweepers, will probably be used to great effect to try and clear out the Black Sea of any kind of mines that are within the area, so that way commercial shipping can move into Ukraine with relative ease after the end of the war. We were also able to see a couple of other pictures of these minesweepers, including right here, what appears to be a Ukrainian Navy sailor with a nice little bottle of milk up there, and also some teacups. You gotta have this stuff on a British vessel, or else you're just not British. But we also got to
I like
see...
how the interior of this British vessel looks like the interior control room of a nuclear station or something. It's got that like color scheme to it, and also like the knobs and stuff that match it.
Man, it is actually really cool. But you know something that's even cooler about the Royal Navy? Let me see if I can pull this up. Flash-proofing uniform. I know some British sailors that are here may not like this, but let me see. Here we go. Anti-flash gear. This is what I'm looking for. So, whenever the British are getting ready to actually conduct any kind of combat action, this is something that I always find funny. They put on what is called anti-flash gear, or I believe what's really called flash-proofing. Pretty much what it is that they put on a shiesty. Like, I'm not even kidding. They just throw these they literally just throw on shiesties and also some gloves. It's supposed to protect them if there was ever a hit to the vessel and a fire broke out from getting a lot of their face burned, because I believe at this time in history, when this picture was taken, the anti-flash gear was made out of pure asbestos. I'm not exactly sure if that is correct. I'll have to look into that a little bit more and make doubly sure. But nevertheless, this is flash-proofing to make sure that you don't have any bare skin that could end up getting burned if something was to be hit and catch on fire. But still, I find it just to be kind of funny, because the fact that the Navy, also the U.S. Navy does this as well, but not as much as the British. It seems like the British do this a lot more than the U.S. Navy ever has. But the fact that that the Navy has a running tradition of telling people to throw on the shiesties when it's getting hot out there as far as the action goes, I kind of find it a little bit funny. And I bet you a decent amount of British crews that were conducting drills on these mine hunters in the past ended up putting on the anti-flash shiesties. We also get to see a picture here of some U.S. Navy sailors who are also wearing their own version of the shiesty and apparently are getting ready to hold up the Houthis, because we all like to shake down the Houthis a little bit here and there. But moving on from that, and on into our last picture from the minesweepers, we were able to see one of them underway. And we can actually see that it's already gotten its Ukrainian naming near to the back of the ship. And it's actually called the Cherkasy, which is a major city within the center of Ukraine. It's actually right there, the Cherkasy. And we can already see that they put the naming convention on the back of the vessel right there with the Ukrainian naval ensign flying over the ship. That is actually really cool. It's pretty much already a Ukrainian Navy minesweeper, and hopefully they'll be able to use this to great effect at the end of the war to try and clear out their shipping lanes from Russian anti-ship mines, and once again make sure that the paths to Ukraine are wide open for world trade. But moving on from that news from the United Kingdom, which was just really cool to see, we're now going to be moving on back into Ukraine and on into the major news of what's been going on throughout the entirety of the country from pretty much the day's beginning. We were able to see in Vinica a MiG-29 in a picture taken of it as the sun was setting in a far west airfield.
Ooh.
Really nice.
Yeah, that's pretty. I like that. Very nice. And also, I always love the camo on the side of these Ukrainian jets. Like, the camo scheme is always on point. I know this isn't the like the traditional blue and yellow one that looks really sick, but still, the gray and the dark gray looks pretty good too.
So I gotta ask, Matthew, and I think you kind of answered this just right then, but what is your favorite, the grayscale camo pattern or the blue scale camo pattern?
Oh, blue scale, hands down. I love it. It's probably not the best for camouflage, but it looks sick.
I would have to say, I'd honestly have to say, Matthew, on a MiG-29, I think the grayscale camo looks better. But on an Su-27, I think you just can't beat that blue scale camo that they have on an Su-27. It just belongs on it. But a blue scale on a MiG-29, for some reason, it just doesn't really look that good, in my opinion. But what do y'all think in the chat? Do y'all think the blue scale camo looks better, or the grayscale camo like this one has? Do you think that looks better? I'm seeing a lot of people saying blue. I think it actually depends, like I was saying, but I'm interested to see what y'all are saying in the chat about it. But with that, we're now moving on from this little bit of a beautiful picture and also the little apparently Air Force barracks and also air traffic control tower in one in that building over there. Moving on from that and on into the actual area of Kyiv, we were able to get the Ukrainian air defense report overnight, and they did incredibly well. Out of all of the air targets that entered Ukraine overnight, 17 Shahed 136 drones, Ukrainian air defenses were able to shoot down a whopping 16 of them, with only one Shahed 136 making it through Ukrainian air defense and hitting its target. This was an incredibly good night for the Ukrainian air defense, once again showing that they're keeping the skies safe and making sure to keep Ukrainian citizens as safe as possible, even with the little bit of equipment and the available stuff that they have under their control. We hear that they're currently trying to strike up a purchase deal to try and get the Hawk missiles from the United States and the Hawk launchers, as well as the Patriot systems, although Patriots and the amount that they're requesting would probably cost around $7 billion US, a whopping amount. I don't really think the Ukrainians would actually have that kind of money to go shell out for air defense. So hopefully the United States will be able to finally pass that vote through the House, then through the Senate, then to the President, so that way it can be approved on all levels of government, and then we can send over the Patriots as part of a larger support package. But beyond that, the air defense is doing the best it can in Ukraine at the moment, and that is near to perfect. Moving on from that and on into the location unknowns, we actually have a couple of interesting ones today in the location unknowns. Starting off with the T-72M1 in training. And this was a really cool picture. I like this one because of all the dust and the smoke, but still beautiful to see. We can also see right here that the T-72 is once again rolling around with the dust and the smoke being kicked up. And then finally in the last picture, we got to see it sitting in the field with the gun tilted slightly upwards in the air and the driver peeking his head out right there out the top of the hole. Overall, it's just nice to see training still occurring, and once again making sure that the Ukrainian Armed Forces, particularly the 66th Mechanized Brigade, is able to do their job, hopefully, incredibly well. Moving on from that and into our next bit of location unknown news, we got to see a picture of the hammer. Wait a minute, hang on, what? Oh, what? What the hell? I didn't throw it in. I actually only threw in the video of them dropping the hammer. That's good, because that would have been kind of a duplicate deal. But nevertheless, here's a video of the 39th Tactical Aviation Brigade dropping off a French hammer, which is a 250-kilogram bomb, near to the front lines, and also firing off some AGM-88 HARM anti-radiation missiles. Interestingly enough, it appears that this SU-27 actually has that grayscale camo pattern that you like better than the blue scale, Matthew.
Oh, very nice.
Oh! But we can see them making a nice turn, and then we can see them dropping the bomba here soon. We can see them making some more turns, and then finally dropping the hammer. There goes the hammer. You can already tell that the funk is playing hard in the background, Matthew. I mean, they're funking it up in here. And we see them firing the AGM-88 HARM off into the distance.
You gotta love it, though. They always got those rearview mirrors in here. Gotta see what's behind you, can't miss it.
Man, it is so important in a dogfight, especially with the difficulty of how I get. Let me try and figure out how to explain this. The difficulty of the limited visibility in SU-27 pretty much requires them to have the mirrors, but they're also seen in some other aircraft. I think the mirrors are also in the F-15 as well, if I remember correctly, but I'm not exactly certain on that. I know the F-16 doesn't have them because the canopy simply has nowhere to mount mirrors like that, and also the field of view that an F-16 pilot has is so good they wouldn't really need them anyways. But moving on from that and into our next clip, we were also able to see some Fab 500s landing nearby to these Ukrainians who were showing off the size of a crater that was caused by a Fab 500 that ended up hitting earlier. We hear the bomb flying in, and then hitting right out there in the distance. And another one.
Woo!
Man, this guy's getting a kick out of it.
Man, they're those adrenaline junkies, they just love to be around those bombs exploding. It's a different type of breed of person.
Man, I'm telling you what. I'm telling you, you're exactly right. No respect around the other blade. But moving on from that and into our last clip, we were able to see some Russian losses as well in the Russian casualty report. And
and they're doing good today. Juicy losses. Oh man, 6 Bobcats, 1,888. I love to see it. Got to see him knocked out. Bobcats.
Aw, man. This is a warning to the Russians. Oh, man. But beyond that, 6 Bobcat skid steers were knocked down in a single day, a very impressive number. Not only that, 840 Russian soldiers have also been wounded and killed over the past 24 hours, along with 19 armored personnel carriers, 41 supply trucks, 9 main battle tanks, 34 artillery systems, 57 drones, 2 MLRSs, 18 cruise missiles, and 1 anti-aircraft warfare system. It was an incredibly good day in Ukraine. It looks like they did a very good job at knocking out a lot of the Russian frontline units, and not only that, once again knocking out a large number of Russian infantry. This means that, once again, the Russians are more messed up than a loser living in the apartment in Minnesota on drugs. And I gotta say that it is incredibly nice to see that the Ukrainians were able to mess up the Russians about that badly, but nothing can really get on that level. But with that, we're now going to be moving on from the Russian casualty report and on into the area of the Ukrainian frontline news. And there's a decent amount of it to cover today, really from north to south. Although, of course, we didn't really hear a lot in the northeast because it's kind of iffy whether anything happens up there or not sometimes. But before we get to that, we do have to address some questions. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, and real quick, we do have a poll that is running, and it says data reveals Russia only has enough equipment to last through 2024, and the question is this why Russia is suddenly blitzing the way they're doing? And 54% said yes, Russia doesn't want to run out, and 25% said no, Russia simply wants to win right now, and 12% said probably so, but we need more info. And I gotta say, I understand why some folks might have picked the 25% option that Russia simply wants to win now, but I would say that Russia said before this was a 3-day military operation, and that was the time frame they wanted to win, and now it's 2 years later, and they're barely doing anything. So I would say Russia simply doesn't want to run out, and that's why they're blitzing so suddenly, because they're trying to race against the clock to prevent their equipment from actually getting all destroyed, and then they can't win whatsoever. So, Enforcer, what say you?
Man, the Russians out here right now like, I have an economic depression coming and I need cash now to call in the Ukraine war. Bomb them into oblivion.
Call Xi Jinping.
Call Xi Jinping. 877 cash now. But anyways, that was actually pretty good. That actually kind of worked. But anyways, to answer that in all seriousness, Matthew, I actually think that they're running out of everything. They're running out of money. They're running out of gas. They're running out of equipment. And when you really think about it, it's not just this one thing that's making the Russians want to end the war fast. Everything, the whole roof is coming down by the end of this year, clearly. Like, you know, and a lot of people have been wanting to say that for a while. And we've been hoping that it'd be the case as well. But the reality is that it really is going to be coming down this year. There's so many signs that are very clear. It doesn't matter about the Russian public rioting or protesting anymore because we know that that really has no effect. But one thing that will have an effect in Russia are things like massive floods being caused from pretty much crumbling dams, collapsing bridges. The Russians are running out of gas for anyone to even get anywhere or for the Russian nation to even survive. And then not only that, they're also just running out of equipment altogether to fight the war with. All of this is once again showing that they're going to be pretty much done and over with by the end of this year. They have to try and obliterate the Ukrainians to end the war. What they're doing right now, and this is clearly an end war ordeal right now, they are going all in at the moment. They are throwing everything they have at Ukraine because they're not going to be able to go into next year to throw anything at them at all. And so they're thinking, if we're going to be out of the war by the end of this year, we need to get the Ukrainians out of the war probably by late summer or by the fall, right before we're about to collapse, because then that means we can finally get out of this war right before Russia actually does cave in on itself. So I would have to say that's most likely my opinion on it, because it is actually a pretty tough situation for the Russians, an incredibly tough one when you really take all things considered. But with that, I hope we were able
to... I think seriously speaking, when we say that, call Xi Jinping, that's seriously what Putin's doing. That's Russia's real only hope of getting enough equipment to be able to keep their war effort going without simply running out at the end of 2024, is if China decides to give a ton of stuff to Russia. And I don't think they're going to do that in the way that Putin really needs them to do. Right now, China's simply supplying parts and bits and pieces to Russia to keep their stuff going, but not enough to actually float the entire military, as we understand in the public. It may be different behind the scenes, but we don't know that yet in the public. So I think Putin's going to be out of luck at the end of 2024, regardless of if China's supporting him or not.
I don't think the Chinese will support them, because if they did, that's going to make them such a big target for the West's I guess you could say, guile, that they probably would end up getting a lot of damage economically from that. And we already understand that the Chinese are going through a serious economic downturn at the moment. It's just that the Chinese government is suppressing the information about that best they can. But from what we can tell, they're going through a massive housing crisis in China. They also have a high level of unemployment. The last time that the unemployment numbers were officially reported by China, which was around 8 to 9 months ago, nearly 33% of citizens in between the ages of 18 to 34 were unemployed, which is a large part of the workforce inside of China. Going off of that, we know that the Chinese are having an incredibly rough time keeping things going inside of China, so I have a feeling that they probably would not want to even risk the economic downturn that could come from the West sanctioning China because they're supporting the Russians openly. And then that becomes a question of whether we would sanction China if they did something like that or not, but I feel like that's a question for another time, and they probably would end up not wanting to run the risk of seeing whether the West would sanction them or not for doing something like that in a large form. So really, the Russians are out of time. There's nothing more that they can do. And also another thing that is true about Matthew saying, the Russians really are viewing Xi Jinping as J.G. Wentworth, is that Putin even said that in the Tunky G interview from a while back. And y'all may have realized that because Putin said, "You stupid Western Americans, you do not understand. The yuan is the way to go. You can't trade without Chinese money anymore." And that is completely bogus because it's not true for Russia. Russia can't trade with American dollars because they're simply cut off from American dollars. It's not an option for them. But for countries like Russia, the only refuge they have from complete economic desolation is to try and turn to the Chinese and really just trade on their currency. And that's something that is so crazy to me to see, is that the Russians try and push that propaganda here in America and go, the dollar is worthless. And the dollar is still, while really the dollar, I'll have to say, isn't doing the best it's been doing in recent years, it's still the strongest currency out there in the world at the moment, and it is the reserve currency of pretty much the entire globe, even right now. And let me go pull up reserve currencies, and let's see here, over time, and let me go see if we can show a good chart here. A good chart. Let's see here. So reserve currency. We want to find one that doesn't show Bitcoin as being the current reserve currency because that is a lie. Like no country is going, yes, I need Bitcoin. No, that's just like random people out there. But let's see here. So I'm trying to make sure that we get this correct here. US dollar. All right, so here we go. So here is the difference in reserve currencies on a chart right here from 1965 up to the present day. So, as we can see, the United States is still clearly the largest reserve currency holder in the world, making up 58.41% of world reserve currency at this point in time. The Chinese renminbi, apparently not the yuan, I swore it was the yuan, makes up 2.29% of global reserve currency. The yuan or the renminbi, whatever the hell they want to call it today, has absolutely no way to compare or even try and match the US dollar in the amount of people who use it as reserve currency. So for the Russians, they really do view the Chinese as J.G. Wentworth because they're really the only people who are getting cash now from the Chinese. Beyond that, interestingly enough, the pound sterling is still kind of holding on, at least at a historical good point, at around 5%, very similar to the Japanese yen. Then the only other group of reserve currency in the world, or the only other reserve currency in the world that's used somewhat, is the euro, with 20% of the world using the euro as a reserve currency. But beyond that,
you always got to be on the lookout for that BRICS money, though. That BRICS money might pop up and just absolutely destroy the U.S. dollar, take away that 58% market share right there. It might just knock it down all the way.
Man, it just might knock us off the board, man, because look at it.
Yeah.
I mean, look, man, you look at all the BRICS members that are on this list. The Chinese, and that's it. So,
Yeah.
so they make that BRICS currency. Whoa, buddy. I mean, it's over for us.
If you put together all the struggling countries which are run by dictators, you might be able to have something that maybe rivals the Swiss franc.
Or, better yet, Matthew, if you put together all of the starving, angry, poor people in the BRICS countries all together into one, you might be able to get one well-fed person. I don't know. We could be dreamers. I mean, I don't know. It could happen. But beyond that, that's why I just simply do not believe, y'all, none of the propaganda, that's why I don't even really talk about it much, about the BRICS currency is going to outdo America and everyone's, everyone's hoarding gold, because something that a lot of people may or may not know is that the reason why the world went off the gold standard, or at least the United States went off the gold standard, is because the economy was growing so quickly and there was so much economic growth happening that there was no way to back the currency with gold anymore because there just wouldn't ever be enough gold to back up the currency. So we moved on to a faith-based system for that reason. It's not because, we wanted to devalue the money. It's simply because there just wasn't enough gold in the world to be able to back the dollar anymore. So it had to move on to faith-based. And even still, for 50 years, or really 60 years, the American faith-based system is still the most traded currency in the world. No one even gets close to the US dollar. And that's why I know that the Russians are hurting badly on the economic end as well. And that's probably why they're wanting to end the war, is because they're having to trade on the Chinese renminbi, whatever the hell that is, because I remember Chinese currency being a yuan. And they're really the only country that probably is trading on the reserve currency of the renminbi. But anyways, with that, I hope we addressed that incredibly well, and thank you all so much once again for putting in some input right there. And with that, it's time for us to move on into the questions themselves. And Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our super chats this time, we have a massive one from Hokey Redneck, the longtime channel legend, who throws in an absolutely massive $200 donation to help keep the channel running. And Hokey, big thanks to you for that. That is tremendously generous. He says, what happens if Iran, North Korea, China, and Russia go all in at the same time? And he puts in parentheses, non-nuke.
Really good question, Hokey Redneck. That's actually a very interesting one. Let's say that this hypothetical axis of power came into being and they said, we're going to war tomorrow. So let's go over each one. So let's go with North Korea first, because they'll be the funniest one to cover. North Korea assault South Korea through the tunnels. The South Koreans use their defense in depth doctrine that they specifically created to combat the North Koreans, squash the North Koreans, and probably the South Koreans on their own, with minimal U.S. support, will end up curb stomping the North Koreans beyond that point. So that is well, of course, excluding the nuclear weapons, we will probably see Kim Jong-un become red paint for the walls. But beyond that, that's what I would have to say about North Korea. It would be a one and done deal with them. Also, considering that your average North Korean is usually, I believe, 5 inches shorter than their South Korean counterparts due to malnutrition, I have a feeling that Korean rations will probably not be anything worth living for the next day for, in my opinion. Moving on from that and on to Iran. If Iran went all in, they would actually be what we think they're about to do here soon. They would missile attack Israel. Israel will bombard the hell out of them. The U.S. will probably hop in and start curb stomping them. The Israelis could probably just bombard them in an air campaign until we ever actually wanted to move in, so there's really no rush to deal with the Iranians, because the Israelis would most likely have that in hand until we actually tried to respond to it in some sort of a full form. So we could kind of put them on hold and let them bake in the oven for a little bit. Beyond that, if China went all in, that's actually really the only one I'd be seriously concerned about, because while China is having economic issues at the moment, they are still an incredibly large and strong economy in the world. They're the second largest one at around, I think, $18 trillion GDP annually. They probably would be a tough one to deal with because they have the population numbers to sustain a large amount of casualties. Not only that, they do have a very large armed force, although not entirely modern. Much like the Russians, it has a modern facade, but it's not entirely modern. And also on top of that, conducting a war with China would most likely be some sort of a naval conflict for an incredibly long time, unless if the Chinese joined in fighting the South Koreans with North Korea, which is really where the only land campaign would exist in that entire conflict from the outset if that was to happen. Then talking about the Russians, if the Russians went all in, that would really just consist of them attacking Finland, the Baltics, it may be attacking Poland through Belarus, if Belarus was also to join in a little bit as well, or at least lend their territory to the Russians to launch an attack. But that probably would not end too well, because the Europeans alone could probably end up dealing with the Russians. The United States could help out, and probably would help out in that situation, but really, in reality, if all of them started off at the same time, you would see U.S. forces in a minimal amount inside of Europe. You would see them in a minimal amount against Iran. You would see them in a fairly okay amount against North Korea, and you would see them in an incredibly huge proportion going up against China, because China would really be the absolute titan of this axis of evil that we're talking about here, Hokey Redneck, that the U.S. would really have to stand up to and deal with entirely on its own. It would be a titan against titan kind of a fight at that point, while all of the other nations of the world fought on the many different battlefields that now existed, from East Asia to Eastern Europe. But with that, I hope that does address that hypothetical scenario as best I can. I think we would have it in hand. I think the United States could actually have that war in hand on its own. But I think it would be an incredibly long war. It'd be an incredibly deadly war, and it would probably last for endless years, especially a war against China, because it would be so hard to actually fight them directly, because we would have to win a naval engagement first before we ever even got close to China's shores. But with that, I thank you so much once again for the unbelievable support, Hokie Redneck, and helping this channel to keep on running and helping it to be possible. Because if it wasn't for people like you, Hokie Redneck, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible. And I gotta thank you for the unbelievable support as well. That is the biggest super chat of the night, and we are greatly appreciative for how much you enjoy this channel and want to help it to keep running, and not only really help it keep running, just give us a huge amount of support just because you enjoy the channel. We greatly appreciate that, and I thank you so much once again for being a longtime old guard of the Lee Spring Army, and I hope that you enjoyed the new song that we have for the Lee Spring Army tonight. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat is going to go to Carl Pattison, who puts in a very generous $50 donation, and this is his first ever super chat of the stream. So a huge shout out to you, Carl, for that. And sadly, I do not see a comment attached, but he must be from Canada because it says CA on the currency. So huge shout out to Canada, and thank you very much, Carl, for that support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And thank you for the unbelievable support, Carl Pattison, your first super chat ever, and that is an incredibly big one. And I got to thank you so much for that. And while you didn't throw in a comment, I did see you in the live chat earlier say, I'm fairly new to the Lee Spring Army, or really the channel as a whole, and welcome to the channel, the Enforcer channel, and welcome, of course, in turn, to the Lee Spring Army. And you actually asked a question about that. You said, where does the Lee Spring Army come from? Well, that is a great question to have right there, an incredible one, because I actually have an answer baked up for you right here, right now. So, to go way back in time, way back at the beginning of the war, in northern Ukraine, a Pantsir S-1 got knocked out by a Molotov cocktail and was burning in the middle of a field near to the city of Chernihiv. We showed the video of that here on this channel. And when I did, we saw a Lee Springs suspension onto the rear of the vehicle. I made a comment that Lee Springs were archaic because my only knowledge of suspension systems came from 1930s Chevy informational videos, which said that Lee Springs were going out of style and that they were going to be replaced by different suspension systems permanently in just a few years, which turned out to not be true, because apparently predictions from the future from the 1930s just weren't that good. So I made that statement, which was blatantly wrong, and then I got flamed in the live chat for it. And so I took it on the cheek, and I just admitted that I was wrong and Lee Springs were incredibly common, but the chat did not let it go. The chat continued to talk and make riffs about the Lee Spring, the Lee Spring misstatement, or the misspeaking, which was really funny, actually, because like everyone got violent about that pretty much, and it kept on going. It went on from that day into the next day, and then on the next day, which we now celebrate as LSA Day here on the channel, someone said, this community is like an army of Lee Springs. And then someone said, the Lee Spring Army. And as soon as I saw that in the chat, I said, hey, that's a pretty cool name for all of y'all. I'm going to call y'all the Lee Spring Army from here forward. And thus, the Lee Spring Army was born. And at that time in the channel's history, the channel only had 37,000 subscribers to its name. Now, over 2 years after the founding of the Lee Spring Army, the Lee Spring Army is 186,712 strong. So it's grown about an entire 150,000 additional members since the founding of the Lee Spring Army. So I hope that shares that story, Carl Pattison, incredibly well about where this community came from. And now we have a lot going for the Lee Spring Army. We have a flag for the Lee Spring Army, which looks incredibly good. We also have a song for the Lee Spring Army, which apparently a lot of y'all really liked. I was actually incredibly nervous about that, and a lot of people had questions about where that song came from and how we made it sound like that. So I'll actually answer all the questions I've seen so far in this quick little infomercial statement. The lyrics were written entirely by me. The lyrics are completely my own creation, so technically they are copyright. But the actual the rendition of the song was actually made by an AI system called Suno AI, S-U-N-O-A-I. That is the system that we use to be able to make that rendition, and it took me about a collective 13 hours and about 376, if I'm remembering the number correctly, that I saw on Suno last time I looked, renditions of the song to be able to get that exact one. And the lyrics went through many different variants, many different forms, until I finally came up with one that actually worked pretty well. And not only that, the AI made an instrumental and also had a choir that I was pretty happy with. So then finally, after about 376 versions of the song, we finally got that one that was pretty good. And then I was like, you know what? I like that one, but we need to change it. So then I have the song and then had the AI create 25 different endings to the song to try and figure out which ones ended the best. And then out of those 25, I picked 3 of the endings that sounded really good. And then out of those 3, I then picked a final ending, which ended up being the song that we have on the stream right now tonight. That was in the intro around, like, I think the 4 or 5 minute mark, somewhere around there. So now we have an anthem for the Lee Spring Army, we have a flag for the Lee Spring Army, we also have symbols for the Lee Spring Army, like the honey badger and the marmot. So we have overall a lot that's been made for the Lee Spring Army. Not only that, a lot of people in the chat continue to add on to really the legend of the Lee Spring Army and what it's been able to do. The Lee Spring Army as a community has ended up raising over $1.3 million for nonprofits that have been operating in Ukraine. It's the largest number that we know of right now on YouTube. So the Lee Spring Army gets to hold credit to that claim. The Lee Spring Army also gets to hold credit to the claim right now of being the most active community for any Ukraine war or really world news channel that covers the Ukraine war primarily. We actually
the fastest growing too, according to the stats.
Yeah, the fastest growing. Not only that, the most active community. So overall, it is a very impressive army by far. And I felt like the lyrics that I made gave a pretty good, a fairly okay, I guess you say, depiction of the Lee Spring Army. So with that, I hope that does address that well. And also, I see, let's see, some people saying, do we have an official salute? Not yet. I'm thinking we might actually go with the British salute where you face the palm outwards, or we might go with just the normal salute that most people do around the world, which is the, American version of the salute, or really the Royal Navy version of the salute, which we then took and ran with. We're thinking it's probably going to be like a normal salute because there's not really a lot more than that. There's the Polish 2-finger salute. There's then, let's see what else. Then the Russians use the normal salute that everyone else uses. The Chinese also use it as well. So we might end up just using the generic hand salute that everyone uses around the world for the armed forces like America does, because there's not really that many out there. For a while, I actually thought that we may have like a hand salute like the Helldivers, but I don't really like the Helldivers hand salute in the game. It kind of looks all right, but So I think we'd rather just go with the normal hand salute that everyone does around the world. But with that, I see a lot of people, see a lot of people in the chat actually talking about the anthem and saying that it should be copyrighted. And technically the lyrics of the anthem are copyright because I have made them. They're my own unique original work. And so that is copyright. The AI rendition, however, is, from what I understand, not copyright because anything that is well, actually, no. I believe that actually gets a little tricky. I think even the AI rendition may actually be copyright under our copyright because I made the lyrics and the lyrics are an original work.
The lyrics and also the beat are copyrighted, and since you're the original author of it, you made it. AI is considered a tool. So if you use a tool, like for example, like a composer uses an instrument, just because they use the instrument to make it, doesn't mean that the instrument holds the copyright. That's my understanding of it, at least. And I believe you hold the copyright to the entire piece.
So right now we do have a copyright, and some people say get it copyrighted with the copyright board. The thing is that technically you don't have to get anything copyrighted at all. You just make it, and it automatically has a copyright. So luckily, thank the Lord, that's how U.S. copyright law works, because it makes things actually incredibly easy. But I see some people actually saying, play the anthem again, or play the song. And do y'all want to hear it again? Because I will take a quick moment to just play it for y'all really quickly if y'all want to hear it again. But I want to make sure that all of y'all want to hear it again, because I know that a lot of y'all weren't here at that point. I think there was only like 1,000 people on the stream at that time, and there's now 6,000 of y'all here. So if y'all want to hear it again, we will play it. If y'all don't, we won't. We will just move on into the next question. But let's see here. I see someone saying yes. Yes. Yeah, okay, so everyone wants it to be played again. So really quickly, let me go flip up OBS, and let me go over here to the intro, and let me quickly speed forward to the part where the anthem actually plays. So, here we go. Here's where the anthem starts. So we'll play it again for all of y'all. We'll leave our mics unmuted and play the song. You know what, actually, y'all, I'm actually going to pause this for a second because I just realized that after we start playing it, Matthew and me can't hear it. So I'm actually going to mute our mics so that way y'all can hear it. But Matthew, your mic is actually going to be unmuted because you're a part of the desktop audio. So you're going to be unmuted, but I'm going to mute my mic. So here we go. And so that was the anthem. So if you weren't here for it earlier, that was the anthem that played in the intro, or really the song. So it's really up to y'all whether y'all like it or not. If y'all like it a lot, and a lot of y'all do, it probably will become the official anthem of the Lee Spring Army. If a lot of y'all don't really like it, then we'll probably go back to the drawing board and I'll make another 400 songs and then try and find one that's good out of that. But that's the general style that they'll most likely all be in. It's just that the lyrics might change a little bit, or the way it's sung might be changed a little bit. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And it looks like a lot of y'all like it. Some of y'all don't like the choir. Sadly, that's like a requirement. I hate solos for anthems, so it's always going to be choral. But I see a lot of people really liking it. Loads of people are apparently loving it a lot. Do y'all want it to be the anthem, or do y'all not want it to be the anthem? Let me know that in the chat. But anyways, with that, thank you so much once again for the massive support in helping this channel to keep on running, Carl Pattison. And thank you for your first support ever. And I hope that that was a rabbit hole of rabbit holes about the Lee Spring Army. And so with that, we are on to the final question of this segment, and then we're going to be moving right back into the news.
And this one is going to go to Ari Sawini, Kiwi wife and Finn, who put in a $30 donation. And also, Ari, your flag has shipped today, by the way. It's on the way. And also, thank you very much for that support. And they said, thanks for the awesome flag. And also, maybe I didn't ship yours today. I'm like losing my mind or something here. They said, keep missing live streams, but always watch later. And for the Bot SWAT Fund.
And thank you so much for the support, Kiwi wife and Finn. But still, thank you so much for the support, Ari Sawini. And thank you once again for being an absolute legend of this channel. I cannot say enough how much you're a legend. You truly are, through and through. And I got to thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, your flag did ship. It will be, hopefully, on its way to the Kiwi land.
No, actually, let me take it back. I think Ari's was one of the test shipments, so I think it got sent out a long time ago. I take that back. I shipped someone else's who had a similar name to you as well today, and they got it mixed up, so sorry about that.
And, all right. Well, with that, I still thank you so much for the support, for being the Kiwi wife and the Finn. And also, thank you so much for the kind words as well, and always enjoying this channel and helping it to keep running. Folks like you make it possible, and if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to keep running on air. And so, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And also, a lot of people are saying they need the lyrics. And although some people are saying it's not understandable. And I've heard that once today when I was kind of playing it before for people. It's understandable when you see the lyrics, but it's not. Sometimes it sounds a little tough because the instrumental gets so loud to hear the chorus. So I will make sure to post the lyrics to that song. But with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you so much once again, Ari Sweeney, for the incredible support and the kind words as well. And with that, we are now moving on into the area of Kreminna, because we were able to see that after the clown show occurred at Kreminna yesterday, we were also able to see that apparently a decent amount of damage was caused to Russian forces again today in the area. Oh, Chad music ensues.
And they are setting fire to this forest right here, calling the French toast man because he needs to put some syrup on this.
Man. Oh man, make it laced with fentanyl, I'll show up. Oh man.
Man, place would fit.
Flaw! But beyond that, it's nice to see that they were able to obliterate these Russians today, and hopefully with some good rapidity. Once again, the Russians aren't really making any advances in the Kreminna force. They really aren't making advances anywhere. And that leads me into kind of making a public service announcement. The Russians have been making incredibly minute advances in some areas. When I say minute, I mean several dozen meters forward minute. It is World War I levels amounts of gains for incredibly high losses. People who are putting out titles on their videos or their streams where they say the Russians are advancing and Ukraine is getting crushed are trying to feed on pandemonium and fear to get clicks and views, a lot like usually losers do. They don't really care about trying to support Ukraine or really talk about the actual situation that we're seeing. They more so want to talk about something that will get them clicks and views. And I want to make sure that y'all are very aware of that out there in the world, because we've seen some people doing that. And I gotta say, I'm of course not a big fan of someone once again prioritizing clicks and views over what the real news is. The Russians have made, I think today, 3 advances, and all 3 of them were only several dozen meters large. You could actually measure them by walking the distance of how far they were able to move forward. For that reason, they didn't advance. If it's not an advance that actually takes a car to travel the distance of, then I don't consider that to be an advance. I consider that a minute frontline change that may as well not even be worth talking about. If you see someone out there who's saying something like that, and I see some people putting hot dogs in the chat. I don't even know what the similarity is there. Crazy. Food and misstatements and lies being put out. That's crazy. But if you see anyone like that, I don't know. Maybe I would unclick the subscribe button, or maybe leave them what your peace of mind is. Something like that. Because I'm not saying that they're wrong, but I'm saying they're idiots for even trying to push something like that. And they are completely wrong. But with that, we're going to be moving on to the area of Rozdalivka, where we also got to see that a Ukrainian Mi-24 almost got hit by a drone today. A Russian drone, but the drone ended up failing, and then it ended up being taken out by electronic warfare systems on the ground. So here's the clip. We see the drone flying. We see it finding the Ukrainian Mi-24 and now chasing it down. Also, Matthew, I think we may have had a case of friendly fire right there.
No, I can guarantee you it's not.
Oh, okay. I'll take your word on it. I'll take your word. But with that, you see the drone trying to chase the helicopter down. We can see it down there flying over this lake. We see it continuing to try and chase down the Mi-24. I don't really know what's in the mind of the drone operator right now. He's like, "Bleh, I'm like 900 meters above the helicopter, and the drone can only go 30 miles an hour. But let's run it into an EW system so that way it falls to the freaking lake and ends up being lost, bleh." Oh, man, they hit static like a bad TV at the end of that thing. But still, with that, that's the end of that clip right there. Very nice to see. And moving on from that and into the area of Bakhmut, we were also able to see that a Russian armored personnel carrier ended up hitting a mine today. There it goes, and bada boom! That man's getting flight miles. Goodbye. But there's the BMP, and that thing's toasting. And that is the loss of another APC in the Bakhmut area. The Russians haven't really been able to advance in the Bakhmut area again today. It appears that they're pretty much stuck there. And so we're going to be moving on down to Avdiivka, where we got to see today in the area of Stepove that an APC got blown up before the FPV drone could even hit it. The FPV drone, Matthew, was eyeing this thing, and it ended up not hitting it. It ended up being taken out by AT weapons on the ground instead. So here's the clip. Here comes the drone. It's coming in on that BMP right there. And bada boom! And then the drone tries to avoid the blown up BMP, but this giant roof, pretty much the entire upper armor of the BMP, ends up smacking the drone and taking it out anyways.
Damn. Now, what were the odds of that?
Man, crazy. The odds are 1 in a gazillion. But look at that. That's crazy. Man, that thing literally got
1 in a
double
trillion.
Man, 1 in a trillion. But beyond that, moving on from that into the area of Orlievka, we also got to see Ukrainian artillery continuing to fire on Russian positions from this FPV video that was taken, first-person view, POV video that was taken by a Ukrainian artillerist. We see them loading the shell. Ooh, shoving it on in with a fist. And now it's ready to go. And there it goes. Now we see him sprinting off into the wilderness to grab a radio. And that's the end of the clip. But still, very interesting to see. Very nice to see. Moving on from that and on into our next clip in the area around Avdiivka, we were also able to see the launch of a French hammer bomb. This is actually where the launch occurred, and now I remember where I put the picture, but there's a picture from the video, and we believe that the launch of the hammer happened around Avdiivka from the Su-27. Still, pretty cool. And with that, we're going to be moving on from the Avdiivka area and down on into the southern front, near to Huilopol, where we were able to see some Ukrainian sappers working close to the front. And this was a very interesting video. I hope, and let me say this really quickly, I hope that this video's music is good to go. We usually allow the music in United 24's videos to play, because usually there is no copyright on it, but last night we ended up getting copyrighted on our stream because United 24's music wasn't necessarily licensed, or at least licensed in general. So hopefully that doesn't happen tonight, but if you're watching this tomorrow and you see ads on this live stream, it's probably the reason why. But here's the clip.
Today we are delving into the often overlooked heroes of the Ukrainian army, the support forces. While these dedicated men and women may not be the ones who storm enemy positions head-on, the significance of their tasks cannot be overstated. Their roles, though less visible, are just as crucial as any.
The support forces of the Ukrainian army play a crucial role in processes like fortifications, logistics and mining. To provide an insider's perspective, we've embedded with the 48th Engineering Brigade.
A good sapper needs to have it all. His arms, legs, and eyes need to be in the right place. This is what makes a good sapper.
Being a sapper entails crucial responsibilities. You may be mining potential routes of enemy attacks or moving in front of an assault unit, ensuring their path is clear. Ahead of the first serves as their motto.
It is worth mentioning that we were planning to join a sapper unit that is working near Avdiivka, which is considered to be the hottest point of the front line at the moment, but they receive casualties there on a regular basis, so it is just too risky.
We both mine and demine, and we accompany different groups, ensuring their safety, so that they can fulfill the task. The situation there is quite difficult now. 3 days ago, we sent out a sapper group, and all 4 people got concussed.
This is the BMZ trailed mining system, capable of delivering 2 tons of Soviet PM anti-tank mines in just 15 minutes. Given the strategic situation, a substantial part of the sapper's tasks involves mining. However, deploying this vehicle full of TNT anywhere close to the front is a one-way ticket. Consequently, sappers in Avdiivka have to work at night, manually carrying mines under the constant threat of shelling. Imagine this as your job. Building fortifications is the bread and butter of army engineers. Rostislav operates a specialized earth-moving machine designed for digging trenches. His shoulder patch proudly says landscape design specialist. Despite the machine's age, it still outpaces the alternative of digging with the shovel.
Man, straight back.
Much faster. We can dig approximately 70 meters an hour. The closest I've worked to
Man,
the
put
front
some
lines
corgis
is
on that
700
job. Look
meters.
go fast.
Man, true.
That's 700 meters to enemy positions.
His colleague Maxim, a construction worker in civilian life, is essentially building logistical routes. This job often entails considerable risk, but is crucial, ensuring the constant flow of resources and ammunition to the front line every day. As we can see, Maxim's BAT-2 roadmaker already bears battle scars. He mentions it's been shelled 5 times when on duty.
Man. Impressive.
We pave roads where necessary. We try to prepare them so that our equipment can easily reach the positions and carry out tasks.
As US Army General John Pershing famously said during World War I, infantry wins battles and logistics win wars. This quote holds even in 21st century warfare, where tools like bridges and pontoons play a crucial role. For example, this heavy mechanized bridge, capable of deployment in just 20 minutes, covering a span of 10 meters.
Roads and ferries, and logistics in general, are an opportunity to send reinforcements, provide supplies, get people out of the danger zone, and attack from unexpected directions.
As a part of Western aid to Ukraine, engineers have adopted the belly bridge technology, a modular bridge design from World War II, known for its compactness, ease of construction, and independence from heavy machinery. In this frontline city, these bridges are frequently targeted and destroyed by the enemy, only to be rebuilt again.
You can literally install it in a day, like a puzzle. It can withstand up to 60 tons, with no problems at all.
A significant amount of work goes unnoticed when the army is at war. With this episode, we aim to show the unsung heroes of the Ukrainian army and their great efforts. Whether it's logistics, mining, or fortification units, each of these individuals put their lives in danger for one common goal.
And that's the end of the clip from United 24, but a very interesting look at the combat engineers and sappers who continue to keep the Ukrainian army running day in and day out. It's nearly a thankless job, but the frontline soldiers thank them greatly when the supplies and reinforcements continue to flow in thanks to their massive and endless efforts behind the front lines. Moving on from that and into our next clip, we also got to see a M270 HIMARS hitting a Buke. Actually, sorry, a Tor. I mean, you see here that the Tor is about to get torrented. Downloaded up onto the web link. But anyways, we can see that they're lining up the target, and here it comes any second now. The bada boom, bada bing, bada boosh.
Look at that thing sitting on top of the HIMARS like something out of Ghibli Studios or something.
Man, that thing's a cherry. That thing is a hold-on fruit. I don't know why they like the cherry and the HIMARS together, but we can see that right there, that HIMARS rocket just ended up landing on top of that Tor and obliterating the thing, taking it on out. Someone said Russia is not losing the war.
Who said that? Who said that?
Who said that? Don't worry, I got him. Yay! I got him! But anyways, moving on from that and on into our next clip, we got to see in the area of Rabotny a scythe being used. And this was a very interesting system as well. Check this clip out.
Look. Is it an FPV? Go, go, go.
Wait a minute, this is an older clip. I know it off the top of my head. I've seen this one before. It's a classic. Moving on out of the area of Rabotny and down on into Krynki, we were able to see that near Radinsk today, Russian forces were hit nearly 20 kilometers by behind the front lines by a longer range fixed wing FPV drone. Chad music ensues as we watch the Russians go into their little house right here. And a bada boom. And that's the end of the clip, but nice to see that they were able to get that deep strike happening just right then and there, right on the Russians, right on time. With that, it's time for us to move on up to Kyiv to cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on day 779 of the war. And so, without further ado, are you kidding me? Hang on.
I want speech. We're not settling for no speech. We want speech.
We have to go to the speech from President Zelensky.
We have to type in the president of Ukraine on the YouTube and find them. Find them, damn it. The president of Ukraine gets 1.5 million views a month. We get 7. Slav Ukraini. But let's see here. So here we go. Yeah, all right, I found it. I found it. So let me get this up on the screen.
Who's casual today? He's sitting down with the nice fine waters.
Man, let me make sure to put this thing in English. All right, here we go. Here is the speech. Oh, come on.
Speech.
Приємно бути сьогодні в Чернівцях і бачити такі світлі обличчя, які тільки що були в цьому ролику, обличчя українського народу, людей, які працюють на нашу державу, на наших героїв, які абсолютно героїчно захищають нашу державу, захищають наші сім'ї, наші домівки. Ви знаєте, у нас не перша зустріч в рамках, не перша регіональна поїздка в рамках «Зроблено в Україні». Ми були на Чернігівщині, були в Сумщині, в Київській області, і розпочата ця платформа, і вона працює. Для нас дуже важливо було, щоб ми приїжджали до регіонів з конкретними результатами. Бажано, щоб ми підписували контракти після спілкування. Бажано, щоб були це реальні дієві контракти. Якщо ми під час приїзду не домовляємось, якщо урядовці не підписують ті чи інші контракти, це говорить про те, що не дуже пропрацьовані наші зустрічі. І ми говоримо про конкретні документи, не тільки про меморандуми, хоча наміри – це також дуже важливо, але і конкретні речі. Що таке конкретні речі? Це конкретні гроші від нашої держави в конкретний бізнес вашого регіону, того чи іншого. Напрямок будь-який. Брехати не хочу. Скажу чесно, що ця програма у нас з'явилась після того, як ми спілкувалися один з одним і хотіли підняти той потенціал оборонно-промислового комплексу, який є в різних регіонах нашої країни, який завдяки бюрократії не доходить до нас. І ми не можемо зробити нормальне замовлення. І ми працюємо з одними тими самими компаніями. Ми хотіли знайти в регіонах відповідні компанії. Ось така була у мене ідея. Ми проговорили з прем'єром, з міністром економіки, а потім зрозуміли, що так, оборонно-промисловий комплекс – це пріоритет, але потім побачили, що не тільки технології, не тільки дрони, не тільки реби, не тільки, скажу відверто, артилерія, але є ще багато всього, багато інноваційного, багато звичайного бізнесу, який ведуть і яким живуть абсолютно незвичайні люди. Українці, які тут, які так важливі для нас. І так, я думаю, що ви розумієте мене, що ОПК – пріоритет через те, що війна, через те, що нам треба бути швидшими, швидше, ніж наш ворог. Але тим не менш, поруч з цим бізнесом іде інший бізнес, який так само важливий сьогодні, який дає робочі місця. І поруч з цим бізнесом через війну з'явився у нас релокований бізнес. Також я хотів би подякувати вашому регіону і підприємцям, і владі, і просто людям, всім, хто підтримує релокований бізнес, той, який через війну втратив адресу тимчасово, я впевнений. Я впевнений, що повернуться. Може, тимчасово втратили свій дім, але не втратили державу, Україну, не втратили своє, як то кажуть, жилку підприємницьку, які продовжують свою справу. Тому і так з'явилась у нас ця платформа «Зроблено в Україні». Я хотів вам такі деталі сказати, абсолютно відверто сьогодні, щоб ви зрозуміли, чому ми їдемо в регіони. Ми хочемо допомогти бізнесу. Ми хочемо, щоб цей бізнес з нами спілкувався, щоб був діалог. Ми не просто приїхали і потім знаходимо інші виклики, інший регіон. Ні, ми повертаємось до регіону, де ми були, ми дивимось на контракти, ми вирішуємо проблеми, і також разом з контрактами вирішуються проблеми, які є у бізнесу в регіоні. В кожному регіоні є проблеми, які співпадають, але є абсолютно свої, локальні, тобто вони різні. І ми готові до співпраці, готові допомагати. Для нас важливо, щоб ви збільшували робочі місця. Як було в відео, для нас важливі люди, для нас важлива економіка. Економіка наповнюється податками нормального, білого, світлого бізнесу. І вся ця економіка сьогодні, ви знаєте, бюджет України, це бюджет фронту. Тому всі ці гроші в будь-якому випадку йдуть на фронт, йдуть українському солдату, українському воїну. Ну, тому ми тут. І якщо, шановний перший віце-прем'єр-міністр, мене не зупинить, я можу до ранку ще з вами говорити, але краще, мені здається, почнемо по змісту і вирішувати проблеми.
But with that, that is the end of the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky and Rum Slava. And with that, it is time for us to move on into phase 2 of tonight's stream, where we get to talk to all of y'all. It's going to be a great night. And I got to say that it's going to be an incredible time. It's going to be a wonderful time. We're going to get to talk to every single one of y'all about anything y'all want to talk about. Matthew, take it away.
Well, we actually have a poll to address, so we're going to jump right into that one. And it says, data reveals that France buys more gas from Russia than any other EU country, and what to make of this. And first of all, talking about the gas. We're talking about gasoline. And this is 33% of people saying it's understandable, but sad. 22% said France is a fake Ukraine supporter, and 29% said France must prioritize themselves. And on this one, I'm going to say, honestly, I'm not going to call France a fake Ukraine supporter because they have done good things for Ukraine. I'll say that giving them the benefit of the doubt, it's understandable, but it is disappointing because obviously if we're to sanction Russia, we're trying to hurt their economy so that way they can't fund their war effort against Ukraine. We're essentially being counterproductive by allowing France to buy more gas to try to afloat their economy as well and serve the needs of their people. So while I understand it, it is kind of counterproductive, but, you know, I'm with the 33%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that it's understandable, but it is sad. Once again, countries do have to make sure that they don't go underwater, and the French government probably had to make a call on that at some point and then decide to buy Russian gas because of that. So it's understandable, but it is sad. I wouldn't call them a fake Ukraine supporter, though, because it seems like people are very easy to do that, and that's how you end up making sure that people are not Ukraine supporters at all. If they're having to make a tough call and go, well, we actually have to buy Russian gas because we must, and then say, oh, look, they're bastards, because then they'll go, oh, okay, then we just won't support Ukraine anyways, and we'll just keep ourselves afloat. So I'd have to say it's very disappointing, but I wouldn't want to go all out and just start attacking the French, because it could end up leading to the French no longer caring about Ukraine at all. And that's something that you always want to look out for. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, at least in my opinion. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And it is now time to jump right back into our super chat questions. And also, let me get rid of one person here. They don't know how to have manners. They're cursing people out. But anyways, our first super chat question this time is going to go to Blue Flam 777 LSA, the longtime channel legend who puts in a $50 donation. Massive support. And he actually put in 2, by the way. So huge support. And he says, what's a zebra? He says, a couple sizes bigger than a bra. Slav Ukraine. LSA, question to the chat.
And thank you so much for the support. Blue Flam 777, legend of the channel, absolute hero of the channel, and one of the first people to put LSA in their name. Hey! And also, thank you so much for the incredible support. And I love the joke. That was a good dad joke right there. I actually didn't get it until Matthew read it all the way. And I was like, that makes sense. And also, Slava Ukraini. And of course, the Lee Spring Army is the best out there. And with this banger of a song, which I actually have seen a lot of people are incredibly big fans of, it might actually end up being the anthem of the Lee Spring Army. Further renditions will be made. Maybe in the future, if the channel becomes big enough, we'll actually have a proper band and choir make the song, so that way it is incredibly crisp and incredibly fresh. But for now, we have to settle with Anthem Lite, which is the AI-generated version of the Anthem. But beyond that, I got to thank you so much once again for support, Blue Flam 777, and helping this channel to keep on running and throwing in the dad jokes. And we will make sure to send a question to the chat. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
And this question from the chat goes to Barry Woodward, who says, do you know if Israel has been using their laser anti-missile system? And that's a good point, Barry. I almost forgot all about I think it's called the Iron Laser or something like that.
Beam.
Super cool. Or Iron Beam. Yeah, the same thing. But whatever it's called, that thing is super cool. And the UK is actually working on a similar device to that as well. And it's really unique to see that laser weaponry is actually becoming a reality now, because we saw it in Star Trek and all these other things as well, and now it's becoming real. And I'm like shocked to see it, but it's going to be a game changer as well. If Ukraine could get their hands on one of those, it would be over for Russia. But Enforcer, what say you?
From what I understand, they are not using the Iron Beam at the moment. We haven't heard a lot about it, at least on public reports. We think it's not operational. It has been rushed into service, though, as early as October, I think it was the 12th, was when we heard that the Israelis were going to rush it on into service and start using it. But we have not heard much about its use beyond that statement. So we don't really know if it's in use or not, and that would lead us to believe it's most likely not operational and not being used. So with that, I hope that does address that question fairly well from Barry Woodward, Absolute Channel Legends as well. And thank you so much once again, Blue Flam 777, for the ultimate dad joke, and not only that, helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one from Blue Flam 777, like I said before, is another $50 donation. He says, what do you call a Russian ship on the seabed and has anxiety? A nervous wreck.
Ooh.
Dad jokes for the win. And question to the chat.
And I gotta say, that was a good one, Blue Flame 777. Original and fitting for the theme of this channel, which is the Ukraine war. Because Blue Flame, I'll put money on it. There will be one person in the question segment that comes in before the end of the night tonight going, where's the news? And Matthew will end up banning for that. It's always so funny because it's always someone who thinks they're smug and stuff, like they're getting to the bottom of something, and then they get banned all out of the blue. But beyond that, I do have to say, that is a great dad joke, and I gotta thank you for making one that is themed on the war, so that way at least that one super chat doesn't lead to someone random coming into the channel and going, where's the news? And they get you banned for it. But still, thank you so much once again, and I gotta say, dad jokes for the win, faux show. And we will make sure to send a question to the chat. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
All right, and the question from the chat this time is going to go to Uncle Sam, who says, does Israel have a nuclear power plants?
From what I know, I think they do. Let me make sure to check that, because I think the answer is yes. Does Israel have nuclear power? It has no nuclear power plants. Let's see. But it does have nuclear research reactors, which they conduct research things with. No nuclear weapons, just entirely research. No nuclear weapons. They have 50 of them. But with that, I hope that does address that well, because from what we can tell online, no, they do not have any operational nuclear reactors inside of Israel. But still, thank you so much once again for support. And thank you for sponsoring that live chat, Blue Flame 777, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible. Help to keep the world spinning, just like the Lee Spring Army, which keeps the world turning. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Ing X, who puts in a 50-pound donation. Let me make sure that is a pound, by the way. I believe a pound. That is a pound, correct?
Sterling.
It's a pound sterling. I'm telling you what, very heavy donation. And thank you very much, Ing, for that support. And he also said, can I ask my question later? And sure you can. Tag me in the chat and we'll return back to it. But of course, thank you very much for that massive support. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank you for the unbelievable support, Ing X, and helping this channel to keep on running. I saw you in the live chat say that when you have the support, you will support, and I gotta thank you so much for choosing to support the channel. It's something that no one has to do if they don't want to, and that's what really blows us away about the Lee Spring Army, is that y'all choose to support this channel a great deal on y'all's own entirely. And with that super chat, a lot of support in a single super chat. That is truly unbelievable to us, that folks continue to enjoy this channel enough to support it like that and continue to help it to keep on running. it really does blow us away, because unlike other channels that have to force their viewers to pay either by turning on memberships or turning on ads on their streams or trying to get sponsors for their live streams, we have run a live stream now for 779 days on YouTube without having to run ads on a single one of them. And that is crazy when you really think about it, because I don't really know this for certain. I don't know if there's any other crowd-funded YouTube live streams like that out there where there's literally no support for the live stream except for Super Chats, but I think we may be the longest-running one of its kind in YouTube history at this point. That is a very bold claim, though, and I'm sure it's probably not correct, but we just don't know of anyone else who runs their channel or their live stream this way. And I gotta say, thank you so much, IngX, for supporting this channel and helping us to keep it running, because I'm so happy that we've been able to do it this way for so long. And it's gotten us a little bit of flack, not really from viewers, more so other YouTubers who want to act like it's wrong for us to make a living running YouTube while they're making a living quietly running YouTube, getting ads, getting sponsors, and things like that. And funnily enough, if y'all do not know, because, you know, we've actually crunched the numbers behind the scenes to figure out what would, if it was actually about trying to ensure the channel's longevity or really making the most out of the channel monetarily, what would be the best path to move forward? And actually, crazily enough, it's actually running ads and sponsors on live streams. We would make, I think it was like an estimated 300% more doing that than through Super Chats. But I decided to do it this way because I think it's not scummy. I think it's very transparent, because you can literally see all the Super Chats that come in and all the support. And not only that, it makes sure that this channel isn't trying to force itself into being a money-making machine. It's more so just the fact if y'all like the channel, y'all can support it. If y'all don't like it, y'all don't have to support it. Or whether you want to support it or not, you just don't really have to. And you don't have to even give a single second of time to an ad. You don't have to listen to a sponsorship on the live streams. You don't have to do any of that. And these live streams are really special that way. Really, in fact, there is no other live stream that exists like that, at least in the Ukraine war genre, on YouTube at all. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, IngX, because folks like you who help to support this channel help this thing to be possible, and I got to thank you so much once again for helping this thing to keep on running. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to, let's see here, it goes to Marlene Mercer, LSA, who puts in a $27 donation. And thank you very much, Marlene, for that support as well. And she said, amazing job with the LSA anthem.
And I got to thank you so much once again for the support, Marlene Mercer, and being a legend of the channel. You've been around for an incredibly long time, a wildly long time, and I gotta thank you so much once again for supporting this channel tonight, throwing in the kind words, and not only that, making the LSA flag your profile picture. And thank you so much for really enjoying the LSA anthem. It took so much time to make that anthem. Unbelievable amounts of time, about 13 hours, which I didn't think it would be taking that long. But the AI system doesn't know how to make an anthem. So I actually had to put in a whole bunch of special gizmo magic crap into the description of how the song was supposed to sound to make it sound like an anthem. It took a lot. I mean, it really did, because I could play some of them that were like the rejects, but they're just so bad. Like, in my opinion, they're so bad. They're not anthem-like. They're just like normal songs that I don't like them. So I got to thank you so much for enjoying and appreciating the effort that went into that, because I put as much effort into that anthem. Well, actually, I put more effort into that song, which is now probably going to be the anthem, than I actually do into a single night's live stream, or really the entire week's worth of live streams. But still, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well, and thank you for being a long-time legend of the Lee Spring Army, and not only that, an old guard as well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to Merlin71, who puts in that $22 donation, and thank you, Merlin, as well. He says, they fired the only one ICBM that works, Russian Third World Army. And honestly, Merlin, like, a lot of people say that, and in reality, I'm sure that a lot of Russia's nukes honestly probably don't work, because if they're keeping their armed forces up the way they're keeping their nukes up, you know, that's not a good thing. I'm sure some of the nukes probably won't even fire, And even if they could get them to fire, they're firing like sequence to get the guys to actually turn the key to actually send them up in the air is very odd. I'm not sure if Putin gave the order to do that it would actually happen. It would be kind of weird. But seriously speaking, I think their ICBMs are pretty bad shape. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that their ICBM forces, or nuclear forces in general, are probably in incredibly bad shape. The nuclear arsenal that the Russian Federation has today is almost, well, actually, it's a very large part of the Soviet arsenal of the 80s. They took the entire Soviet Union and really half of the government spending annually to keep up the army and also the nuclear weapons at the same time. Nowadays, the Russians hardly dedicate any of their spending into the nuclear, well, really the armed forces at all, which includes the nuclear arsenal, and their economy is far smaller than the Russian economy was, meaning that even with the amount of spending they're doing, which is quite minute, it's minuscule compared to what the Soviets were spending. So I would assume that a lot of their nuclear weapons probably aren't working at all, and I would say that it really is a third world army at this point inside of the Russian Federation. It's a lot like other countries throughout the rest of the world. For example, let me try and come up with some good ones. Really, the only ones I can think of are in the southern Arabian Peninsula or inside of Central Africa. Because when you actually get closer to southern Africa, for example, South Africa is a fairly competent nation militarily, as well as a couple of other countries. For example, Nigeria has been rapidly growing recently, both economically and militarily, at least for the region. And also countries like Egypt are fairly all right. They're fairly well off. But they truly are on the level of competence, I would say, of a country like Sudan or South Sudan. Because, you know, those countries, whether you like them or hate them, militarily, they're pretty bad off. We saw that with the Sudanese Civil War when it started off about last year at some point. I forgot when. But with that, I hope that does address that well, Merlin. Thank you so much once again for supporting this channel and helping us to keep this thing running. And also, thank you so much once again for being a European member of the Lee Spring Army. And so with that, thank you so much. And we are on to the next one.
All right, and real quick, we do have a poll question to address, and it says, are we on the verge of World War III? That cliche question that many people are tired of being asked about, but we have to ask it because a lot of people are saying stuff about it. But what was that?
We're gonna die. I'm just kidding.
Oh! But it looks like 62% said, yes, we are on the verge of World War III, and 38% said no. And I want to preface this before I give my answer with, just because World War III starts doesn't mean the world's going to blow up instantly. I think that's a preconception that we sort of like have built into our brains, and I don't think that's really the way it would go immediately. But I am within the 62%. I think we are on the verge of a worldwide conflict. Now, I'm not saying that to fearmonger, got to make that clear as well. But with everything popping off between Iran and Israel, and also the U.S. and several other countries potentially getting involved in that, along with the Ukraine-Russia conflict, I think that the odds of something happening that could trigger a worldwide conflict are extremely high. And it seems like I got a bad feeling in my gut about the whole situation. And, you know, it's pretty rough to me. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that in my honest opinion, I think that World War III is probably not going to happen. I'm usually the one to usually downplay things because I actually said before the war in Ukraine started, it's probably not going to start, and then it started anyways. But usually the norm is that people try and de-escalate things, especially in the modern era from post-World War II, 1945 onwards. Usually de-escalation from world wars is very likely. It will get very close to being a world war, but it never will really become one. So I have a feeling that it probably wouldn't become a world war, but I'm kind of in the minority there. A lot of people don't agree with that. And y'all are probably right. We're probably very close to the brink of World War III, and it's not that far from becoming one. But I still think that everyone will try their hardest in the end to avoid a full-on world war whenever it may end up possibly happening. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Hokey Redneck once again, and he throws in a $50 donation. Another massive support, and thank you very much, Hokey, for that support. He says, do they have any Typhoons left that work?
Great question. An incredible question. This is the Typhoon-class submarine. This is the biggest submarine ever made in history. At a whopping 575 feet long, it is about as long as a Zunmo-class destroyer, which those things are very big for destroyers. It was huge. These things are massive. And to immediately drop the buildup, not a single one of these things are active anymore. They were deemed to be far too cost prohibitive for the Russian Federation to operate, and so they pretty much started to decommission and scrap all of them just years after the collapse of the Soviet Union and the founding of the Russian Federation. So I would have to say, no, there's not a single one active, and Wikipedia also confirms that as well. There were 6 of them completed, 7 planned, 1 was canceled because of the collapse of the Soviet Union, and now none of them are active. 3 of them are laid up, and 6 of them have been retired. So 3 are laid up, but 6 have been retired. And if we scroll down, you can actually see when all of them ended up being decommissioned. The last one to be decommissioned was in the February 6th of 2023. So technically it was still active. But the thing is that we can see that they decommissioned that one, not because of its age, because it wasn't really that old. It was about 40 years old, which is old, but not too old. It could probably had another 15, 20 years of life, possibly. But they decommissioned the thing because it's just too expensive. We can see that a lot of them were also scrapped pretty early on, or withdrawn from active service incredibly early on. For example, the TK-202, which we don't even have a name for, ended up being withdrawn from active service in 1999, and scrapped with the financial support of the United States of America, because the Russians were so poor at the time as a nation, they could not afford in the budget to scrap the vessel. So they ended up having to have the United States pay for it because we wanted that nuclear submarine gone, and the Russians had no way to maintain it, so they ended up letting us pay for it to be destroyed. They also withdrew another 2 in 1996 and 1997, both of them being scrapped years later, and then another 2 were decommissioned in 2006 and 2004. So you can see that almost all of them, except for one, the Dmitry Donskoy, were all retired incredibly quickly. They tried to keep one, really as a power symbol, but even then, this thing is too expensive to maintain. They're huge, and the bigger a submarine gets, the more cost has to go into maintaining them. And I mean, look how big this thing is. Usually when someone is standing on the outside of a submarine, they actually look not that small. They look fairly large. But on the Typhoon class, because it's 575 feet long, you're actually looking like you're on a small cruise ship instead. That is a submarine, which is pretty mental when you actually look at how big this submarine is. So they don't have any of them active anymore. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, Hokey Redneck. Thank you so much once again for the massive, unbelievable support tonight. And thank you so much for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to Frostbright Productions, who puts in a $20 donation. And huge shout out to you, good sir, for that support. And he says, let's talk about Niger. It is solely my opinion that Russia supplying Niger with weaponry is a tactic that Russia has used many times to eventually conscript them for the war effort, and regardless of what promises they proclaim.
And I would have to agree for the most part, but the thing with Central African countries is that the reality is that they don't really have a lot to bring to the table. They're economically weak. Maybe manpower is the only thing that they can bring to the table, but usually the power plays that happen within Central Africa are very rarely ever affecting the world. It's kind of like power struggles that have happened in Central America. They very rarely affect the world at large. So I would have to say, maybe Putin is trying to, honestly, I think Putin is trying to take off where the Wagner last left off in Niger, because the Wagner was operational in Mali, Niger, and Chad all at the same time. So going off of that, I think he's trying to get back in their good graces and operate as the official arm of the Russian government and try and get more of a sway within that region, maybe kick France out because France is heavily involved in these areas of Africa, and also try and draw in more manpower for the war effort. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well, because I think that's really what Putin is doing. I think you're hitting it largely on the nail. But with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is gonna go to Scribe, who puts in a $20 donation. And they said, I lived. I had a good birthday. Also, happy birthday to you, by the way. Apparently, they had a very good one. I'm glad to hear. He said, neighbor gifted me a record player, and my job paid me. And here's a Jackson to help y'all. And quick question, have y'all heard of Ultimate Admiral Dreadnoughts? It's made by a Ukrainian game studio.
Of course I have, Scribe Holder. I have heard of Ultimate Admiral Dreadnoughts. I think it was a fairly good game. I didn't play it a lot because it wasn't really my thing, but it was still pretty good for what it was. I really liked it. And I gotta thank you so much, Scribe Holder, for asking such a question because, you know, while I am a YouTuber, I'm still a little bit of a gamer, and I do play games from here to there. But one game I'm really excited about, which is coming from Central Europe, not really Ukraine, but I'll show you all this one on Twitter. Because I want to give them a plug, because I want them to succeed, and I want them to make a multiplayer. Like, I'm not kidding. That's literally the whole reason I'm giving them a plug. So let them know if you're coming from here. Tell them, hey, I know of this place because of the Enforcer, and by the way, he wants multiplayer. So anyways, what it is, let's see here. Hang on, y'all. I'm just making sure that we got everything right. All right, so, yes. All right, good. All right, yeah, I'm just making sure I'm keeping up to date with everything. So, this is Manor Lords. Manor Lords is a medieval city builder game that's going to be coming out on April 22nd, I believe, so in 10 days, which is really exciting. And it allows you to build a medieval town. But what's really cool is that baked into the game is a Total War style combat system where you can raise your own armies, however big you can make them based off of the population of your town, and you can fight other lords within the region and take over their towns and pretty much end up building a sizable kingdom. It is a very interesting game. I got to play the demo when it came out years ago before I think the YouTube channel was even a thing. It was amazing. I was hooked, and I've been watching this game patiently for years now. It is coming very soon. April, like Hooded Horse said, April 26th is fast approaching, and that's when the game will actually be released. But I cannot wait to see this thing. I'm a huge fan of city building games, especially ones that deal with governance and administration, because as you all know, that is one of my big pursuits in life, is to try and get into administration and governance. So this game is incredibly fun. It's incredibly cool. I love it to pieces, and one day I want to get this game. It will be coming out soon. I will get this game, and I will play it. And so, while Ultimate Admiral Dreadnoughts isn't exactly Manor Lords, there is a game a lot like Manor Lords that a Ukrainian studio does make called Ostriv. It's like Manor Lords, but a little bit more toned down. It has nothing to do with the military side of things. It's entirely governance, administration, and building up pretty much a Ukrainian town from the ground up. It's a really good game. It's just like Manor Lords, pretty much, just without the extremely good graphics. It has great graphics, but they're not extremely great, like movie quality like Manor Lords is, and also the combat mechanics are removed from the game. There are none. But beyond that, it is a very good game in its own right. And if you want to get a game like Manor Lords, but also support a Ukrainian game publisher or a Ukrainian game creator, Ostriv is the way to go for city builders. But with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well. And thank you so much for bringing up some about games. Rarely ever talk about them on stream because you know, games are games, so I usually just don't bring them up. But nevertheless, I'm happy to talk about it, and I love to talk about Scribe Holder. And also, I hope you had a great birthday. And that's cool to hear that your neighbor gifted you a record player. I've always wanted a record player. You know, I've always wanted to be able to get a record player and get some really cool vinyls and play records. But the thing is that I'm usually moving around a lot, or I'm on the computer, so I end up playing a lot of my music through my headset that I'm wearing right now. So I don't really know if I'd be able to get a good use out of a record player, but still, really cool that you got one. I would love to have one. And also, thank you so much for throwing a Jackson our way. Andrew Jackson.
Jackson.
President of the United States. But still, thank you so much once again for support. I hope I was able to address every single part of that super chat the best I could, Scribe Holder. And happy belated birthday to you again, and I hope you had an incredible one. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Ari Sawini, Kiwi Wife and Fen once again, and they put in a $50 donation. A massive support. Thank you very much, Ari, for that. He says, Hokey, cough, cough, $50 Friday this round? I'm out of your league, but I'll play LSA.
LSA, baby! And thank you so much for the support, Ari Sawini. And also, thank you so much for the support. No one has to do any super chat if they don't want to. I want to make that very clear because it's not $50 Friday, y'all. I promise it's not $50 Friday. Unless if you want it to be, then it is. But it's not $50 Friday. You do not have to give a cent to this channel unless if you want to. But still, Ari Sweeney and Hokey Redneck Matthew are in a pissing contest. Can you believe this, Matthew? Can you believe it?
Pissing contest. I mean, if you had any intelligence, you'd know it's not a pissing contest.
I'm going to side with one person who will end up chewing me out in a couple of months publicly. But
at least it wasn't a pissing contest. At least it was a pretty straightforward bashing.
At least they gave me more than 30 minutes on their show. But anyways, oh man.
You could say it was more than a bashing. It was more like a thrashing.
It wasn't even like a thrashing. It was more like a bashing. But anyways, with that, I gotta say, thank you so much for the support, Ari Sweeney. You helped to make the channel possible. I cannot say that enough. And it is incredible to know that you've been with us for such a long time. And I got to thank you greatly for the massive support and helping this channel keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible. And so thank you so much to you, Kiwi Wife and Finn, for the support all the way from New Zealand. And I hope that y'all get y'all's flag and y'all fly it high over the territory, or over the land, not the territory, of New Zealand. I hope we get to see some, I'm honestly hoping that we get to see a whole load of cinematic pictures taken of the LSA flag in different areas of the world. I would love to see the LSA flag flying on mountains, flying over beautiful cities, flying near the top of cathedrals, maybe on a military base or two, although we probably wouldn't be able to publish those pictures because they wouldn't be approved by the S6 of the unit. But beyond that, I would love to see it everywhere. Everywhere, I tell you. But still, thank you all so much once again for support, and thank you, Ari Sweeney, for the support, and I cannot wait to see all the rest of the LSA pictures, the LSA flag pictures that are going to be coming in once the international orders are done, and they're actually going to be done here really soon. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Napa Gus again, who puts in a $20 donation and does not leave a comment. But thank you very much, Napa, for that support. And I was trying to see here real quick if that was your first ever super chat. Let me go back and look here. Let's see. Napa. Let's see what our super chat is.
Hey!
It's his first one ever on the stream. Huge shout out to you for that. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I gotta thank you so much, Napa, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Your first support is greatly appreciated. We thank you so much for enjoying the channel enough to find it worthwhile to support at all. And I gotta thank you so much for throwing it in. You didn't put in a comment, and I would like you to know, Napa, since it's your first time, if you ever attach a comment to a super chat, we will make sure to address the entire thing. But I do thank you for the support, whether it has a comment attached or not, because it helps this channel to keep on running, and we are greatly appreciative for the support and having people like you around who really enjoy this a great deal and really like to sit here and listen to it, and also help us to be able to keep it running so that way we can keep doing this well on into the future, well even after the war. But with that, thank you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to none other than Zyper Sniper 1, who puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Zyper, for that support. He says, I couldn't send my words in my super chat. So my words are, if Russia attack Norway, Russia be ready. I have a hit list, he says, and Putin and Sergei is on the top of it. That's what Zyper said.
Ooh! Dang, he's throwing heat, man. He's throwing out the heat. But beyond that, I gotta say, Zyper Sniper, according to what you said, sounds like you're ready for business. And I gotta say, best of luck to you, Zyper Sniper, because you are the Zyper Sniper. You might be able to get him, you know what I mean? I'm not doubting that at all. And so, with that, I hope that does address that well. And thank you so much once again for support, Zyper Sniper. And you give it to those Russians, Zyper. You give it to them. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Tom Charles, who puts in a 20. He says, late fee. He says, sorry, NASCAR truck race just ended, and please take one from the live chat.
Oh, Tom.
You prioritized the NASCAR truck race over the LSA? Tom, how can you do this, man?
Shame. Treason, even. Take this man and put him in jail. But beyond that, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
You have to leave.
Man, Tom Charles is slamming into like the room that his wife is in right now through the doors. He say, "We gotta pack our toothbrushes. We have to go." Like, we're traitors of the state now. But still, I'm just kidding, Tom Charles. I hope you had a fun time watching NASCAR. And there is no reason to throw in a late fee. We're happy just to have people here, whether they're here in the last 5 minutes of the stream or whether they're here from literally the first second. Which a couple of y'all were. Like tonight, someone always is every single night, and it's always cool to see that. Like, people are racing in here to be first. But still, thank you so much for the support, Tom Charles. No reason to worry about being late. Better late than never, is what they used to say, and I think it's what they say now. But we will make sure to take one from the chat, and thank you so much once again for the support and making this channel possible.
All right, and the one from the chat goes to Dingbad YouTube, who says, did the Russian soldiers set fire to the tanks?
The Russian soldiers did set fire to some tanks at the beginning of the war. We don't really hear about that a lot anymore. Usually we hear about the Russians clubbing each other to death or shooting each other in the faces. I'm not even lying. We just can't show that stuff on air. But I haven't heard of them burning their tanks for a good bit. But that did used to happen pretty commonly. But it looks like the Russian army may have cracked down on that. And so they decided not to burn the tanks. They decided to burn their face. Ooh! But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. Thank you so much once again for the support and sponsoring that live chat. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this next one is going to go to Panama Floyd, who puts in a $20 donation. And he says, I'm seriously stoked that the Ukrainian Navy finally has blue water vessels. Minesweepers will help. And one from the chat, please.
And I'm excited about that as well. I think that's great to see that they actually have a little small navy that's starting to form. It's not going to be a big one. Minesweepers are fairly small on the naval scale, but it's still great to see. I mean, like, who can complain? I'm not complaining. And hopefully they'll be able to have a little navy by the end of the war. They did have one blue water vessel at the beginning of the war, but they ended up sabotaging it in Mykolaiv and sinking it in its moorings, so that way the Russians couldn't use it against the Ukraine if they ended up capturing Mykolaiv. But still, thank you so much once again for support. Now, I have to agree with you, Panama Floyd. I am stoked, much like the stokers at the bottom of vessels who used to fuel the boilers with coal, which used to be a job on old warships. And that's naval fun facts, like Walter A. Lakota would do. I miss Walter A. Lakota's naval facts. But anyways, with that, we will.
He's in the live chat. He's in here tonight.
Hey! what? Quick, Walter, throw a naval fun fact at me. But still, with that, let's take one from the chat.
All right, and this one from the chat is going to go to Yapar, who says, did the test ICBM impact somewhere? And if so, where? And if no, is it still in orbit or was it self-destructed?
I think it may have been self-destructed because we don't know where it hit. We got no information about that. We just got to hear that a launch occurred, and that was it. So there's really not a lot of information beyond that. So it could have hit a target. It could have ended up crashing into the Caspian Sea. It could have been self-destructed. It may even still be in orbit. We actually don't know at the moment. So sadly, I couldn't tell you for sure or for certain, but I have a feeling they probably self-destructed it at some point in its flight. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to the Badger Bro, who puts in a $20 donation. It says, Enforcer, can you imagine the average Russian soldier IQ? Oh, dear Lord. Their grandparents and great-grandparents survived a meat grinder in World War II, only to have their sons and grandsons used as a biogarbage for a 3-day operation meat grinder.
I would have to say, I feel pretty bad. Just like, honestly, I feel pretty bad with it being explained that way. Like, I would feel kind of a little bummed out. Sorry about that, Badger. I didn't mean to cough right there, but there was something in the back of my throat for some reason. But still, I would have to say the average Russian soldier's IQ has to be fairly low. By the way, I hate that I couldn't show this, Matthew, but I finally found a picture, a literal picture of the doorbell that one guy pushed where the garland of explosives fell on top of him and killed him. And it was literally a just straight up normal doorbell on the side of a tree. Like it was like one of those cheap doorbells that you put on like a little condo or something like that. It was one of those, and they put it on the tree, and apparently that's what blew him up. I was like, that's pretty crazy. You would have to have a fairly low IQ to push a doorbell in the middle of the woods in the middle of a war. I like, man, it's a loony.
They usually give like super complex like IQ tests in the West, like to figure out what your IQ is. In Russia these days, it's a simple matter of, Bliat, are you willing to press the unknown doorbell, the forbidden doorbell in the war zone, Bliat? Absolutely. They pressed it.
Man, dude, that Russian said, neck, just blew up instantly, and everyone, oh my god! And then they all went, quick, everyone, let's all put our heads behind the RPG right before it fires. Get the back blast and shit. But it's like, you know, I don't think they're really high IQ. I'm not going to lie about that, because a lot of them do such stupid things. It's crazy to see. It's like, don't y'all know not to, you know, put your head behind an RPG when it's firing? You know, it's like common sense. But nevertheless, I would have to say, I do thank you for the support, bro. I hope that does address it fairly well, because when you put it that way, you're right. But still, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one this time is going to go to Wellness LSA Latvia, who puts in a $50 donation. And thank you very much, Wellness, for that massive support. He says, hello, Enforcers, and hello, Wellness. He says, today I'm trimming 42 cows, and I hope Chris's mom is not going to be there.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
I'm really, Wellness throwing that shade. I'm really happy about the LSA anthem, and I'm so proud that our community has grown so big and beautiful. Unlike Chris's mom, I added that part. Thank you for the great job, and much love to you all. And question to the chat.
And thank you so much, Wellness LSA Latvia. And I love to hear that you're a Latvian member of the LSA Wellness. We will have a flag flying very close to the Russian border here soon. But beyond that, very nice to hear that you're trimming 42 cows, and I hope that Chris's mom isn't one of them. From what we know, Chris's mom is currently in relations with the hot dog man in Minnesota, so it shouldn't be up there. It shouldn't be up there. It should be somewhere else, where it belongs. Probably helping support a grease trap, or a literal living grease trap, or something like that. But beyond that, I would have to say that I'm really happy about the LSA anthem too. I thought it was pretty good. I liked it, me personally. I really enjoyed it. I have seen some people say they didn't like it, but we also had people who didn't like the LSA flag. And so it's there's always going to be some people who are unhappy. But hey, what can I say? A lot of people really love the LSA anthem, and that is all we can really hope for, is that people really would enjoy it. And I'm so happy that a lot of people do. And so that will be probably our anthem from here forward, will be that song. But with that, I also got to say that I'm proud that the community has grown so large and so impressive over the years. It's gone from being, literally, before this channel started covering Ukraine war news, and I was, just doing what I was doing, it went from being 110 subscribers to now we're up to 186,717. We've gained 3 times the amount of subscribers that I had before we started covering world news again. Just today alone. That's something crazy when you really think about it, because it took about 6 months to get 110 subscribers, and now we ended up getting 300 subscribers just today, which is really nuts. But beyond that, I gotta thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you help to make it possible and help us to keep up the great job. And much love to everyone else as well, Wilderness. And I have to say, it is amazing for everyone to be a part of the LSA. And so with that, we will make sure to get a question from the chat. Matthew, I was wondering why that guy hadn't been banned earlier, because he was one of those people going, I don't care, news. And he was doing that kind of crap, and I was like, oh.
Because he's a G. He's Tyler G. I couldn't ban him that quick. He's a G.
Man, he's a G. He's a G. Matthew, you know who else is a true G?
Who's that?
Danny G from Schmethic, Birmingham. But anyways, with that, let's get the live chat.
And the live chat question goes to Ed. Irish Ed, by the way. He says, is it true that the UK and USA ballistic missiles failed horribly about a month ago?
I did not hear reports about that. Matthew, did you hear anything about that?
Ballistic missiles failing horribly. I heard that the hypersonic test failed a while back, but I haven't heard anything about the UK and USA ballistic missiles failing. So I couldn't confirm it. I would have to do some research on it.
I have not heard about that either, so I wouldn't be able to confirm that. At the moment, I'd have to believe it's untrue until I go researching. But take that with a grain of salt, because I'm saying it's untrue with absolutely no backing at all. So with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And we are on to the next one. But thank you so much once again for the support and sponsoring that live chat, Wilderness.
Indeed. And our next one goes to Zyper Sniper 1 once again, who puts in the 20. He says, if World War III started, I predict Russia would collapse and be split into a lot of countries and oblast, North Korea collapse and form United Korea under Western influence, and China, I just guess chaos.
And very interesting, surmising, right? Zyper Sniper. I'd have to say, very interesting. Russia would probably collapse. I think a lot of people think that Russia will collapse into many different countries. I actually don't think it will, for the most part. I think it'll only be the Caucasus Mountain region that'll probably split up into multiple different countries. But most of Russia will probably remain Russia, because a lot of the major cities throughout Siberia are actually cities that are largely Russian themselves. So I think most of Russia will stay intact, but the Southern Caucasus Mountain region will definitely split up, in my opinion. But still, it's a possibility that Russia could start to split up into multiple different areas and maybe be ruled by warlords if it went incredibly south. But that would be very scary to think of warlords in a nuclear country. That would be crazy to think about. But also, North Korea collapsing, a lot of people say that most likely will happen in a war, is that North Korea will collapse. But the wild thing about that, Cyber Sniper, is that South Korea actually doesn't really want to unify with North Korea anymore, because North Korea is so economically dejected that if the Korea is united, there will probably be a massive influx of North Koreans moving into the southern part of Korea, creating a massive crisis. And also, economically, North Korea has nothing to offer. So South Korea actually doesn't want to unify with North Korea. That would certainly have to be something that is under Western influence and probably heavily supported financially by the United States, because otherwise, the South Koreans want nothing to do with the North Koreans as far as that reunification really goes. Like, the concept of reunification, South Koreans like it from what I know, but the reality on the governmental level of reunifying, they never want to follow through with that because it would be so bad. But really, that largely is true what you're saying there. It probably would collapse, and it would require a lot of Western influence and support to make a unification of Korea into a single country again really happen. But with that, thank you so much once again for the support, Cyber Sniper, and I hope that does address that well, because I largely agree with you on both of those facts. But with that, or both of those opinions. But with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, we have a $20 super chat from Hokey Redneck once again. And thank you very much, Hokey, for the support. He says, you should watch the Fat Wire Guy on the 77th ID, Old Bastards.
Fat Wire Guy. Oh, let's go type in Fat Wire Guy. Wow, there's a lot of Fat Wire Guys. There's like 90 pictures. I'm like, oh my God. Man, I'm telling you what. But I'll make sure to go and try and check it out, Hokey Redneck, after the stream. But thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Folks like you help to make it possible and also give me ideas for things to do after stream. But tonight, after the stream, I'm actually going to be sitting down and signing a whole batch. It's actually the final batch of LSA flags that have to go out internationally. But with that, thank you so much once again for support, Hokey Redneck. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Corporal, who puts in a $10 donation, and huge shout out to you, Corporal, for that support. And sadly, I didn't see any comment attached to it, but Enforcer, what say you?
I gotta thank you so much, Corporal, for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. If it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be here right now. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, Matthew, did we cover Monsieur Gaston?
Monsieur Gaston is coming up here in just a second.
Oh, got you. All right, and so with that, thank you so much once again for support. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And with that, moving on to Monsieur Gaston's super chat. He puts in a $20 donation. And thank you very much, Monsieur, for that support. He says, may I have some plums?
And yes,
and I don't know, you have to ask the Marmot about that, because we can't give you permission. The Marmot is the gatekeeper of the plums. And hello there!
Hello there! Hey, it's the Marmot! Would you like a plum, Governor? Oh,
hello,
man.
good sir. I could interest you in 1 plum or 1 rock. 1 kilo of rock, 1 plum, or 3 plum. It's up to you, but no lowballing. I know what I got.
Oh, man. I want to call him out. That's not on the menu, you stupid bitch.
Oh, damn.
Oh,
Marvin's getting nasty tonight. Damn.
I'm getting nasty because we're dealing with a nasty clown that sells hot dogs and ties balloons. But beyond that, I gotta say, thank you so much, Monsieur Gaston.
Cake.
That cake! That thing's got that bakery on it. Man, you just had to say it.
Man,
it was
sling
like
that cake around a bit. Squash that fly, I'm telling you.
Man, squash the fly with an absolute voluptuous butt. But beyond that, thank you so much for the support, Monsieur Gaston, and allowing us to see the Marmot. Alan, the Marmot, the precious Marmot of this channel. We love the Marmot, and I gotta say that the Marmot is a treasure, a true masterpiece of this channel. It is the greatest thing that has ever existed. And I gotta thank you so much once again, Monsieur Gaston, for making sure that a appearance of the Marmot is sponsored tonight, because the Marmot has the rock, the plum, the raw cake, and also the unmitigated Riz. Thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well, and of course, long live the Lee Spring Army, long live Alan the Marmot. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Alan. But anyways, moving on to our next super chat. We have a 10 from Al's Room. And hello to Al and Room. And he said, yo.
That came in when we were watching that clip in Israel where that guy was like, yo, world star. But beyond that, thank you for the support, Al's Room. And thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And but still, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Strong River Flats, who puts in a 10 and says, Fafo, Pootler. And head around and find out.
Man, Fafo. I gotta tell you, man. That fee-fi Fafo. Maybe all that. Thank you so much.
Fee-fi-fo fum. I smell a dumb Russian.
I smell stupid bastards. But beyond that tastes like promotion. Dude, really though, every single time a Russian sees their like sergeant or their lieutenant getting killed in Ukraine, the Russian's like, what does that vodka taste like? And he takes the bottle away from him. He says, that tastes like promotion. And then everyone goes, and then he gets promoted, and then he dies from a doorbell on the tree. But beyond that,
it tastes like alcoholism, bliat. The vodka, the potato vodka, it's so tasty, bliat. I can't stop drinking it, bliat. I need some more of the clear vodka. And this is not that top shelf stuff. This is that dirty vodka.
Evan, what does that vodka taste like? It tastes like cirrhosis. But still, thank you so much once again for the support. Strong River Flats, your first super chat to the channel ever. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on rolling, making this channel possible. And of course, thank you so much once again for being a proud, brand new member of the Lee Spring Army. And with that, we are on. Wow, that was a voice crack right there. We are on to the next one. Like Zoink Scoop. My voice is cracking. But anyways, we're on to the next one.
All right, and also Eldad Sarek said it turns out that one of my friends was the one going yo, and one of those Israeli videos. And what do you know? It's a small world out there. That is crazy. That's one of your friends that filmed that and uploaded it, by the way. So give him a shout out. Tell him we say yo, what's up? But anyways, Enforcer wants to say you.
Man, that's crazy. I can't believe that, Eldad. Let them know that they were on the Enforcer channel tonight. They were actually here. That is so cool. Tell them we said, hey, we hope they're doing well. And so that we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Lord Lathos, who puts in a 10 and says, I got our flag and gift. And thank you, Enforcer Matt. And thank you, Lord Lathos. I'm glad you enjoy it, by the way, and I'm glad you enjoyed the sticker and the flag and the packaging. Is that Lady Lathos would like LSA cat colors, and could it be profitable? That's a good question. That's the first question to always ask when you're starting a merch store item. But it said cat and dog LSA collars, and Lady Lathos wants to stress that would look good or great on a corgi. And that is a good question, by the way. I've never really looked into dog or cat collars for the store, but that's something I will add to my list to examine. We're currently examining many different merch options. Our next merch run is already in production and development, and it'll be released probably in about 10 days or so. So I'll look into that as well and see, because that sounds like a cool idea. But Enforcer, what say you?
That would be pretty cool, Lord Lathos. I'd have to say, we will look into that. We seriously will, actually. And I got to thank you so much once again for the support. And once again, with the merch runs, we have to be able to ensure that they are profitable, because if we were taking a loss, that would be bad. That would be no bueno. So we have to make sure that it would be profitable. We will look into that. Maybe do some studies and figure it out. We're not going to be corporate people, though, and do the studies and everything. But still, I would like to see the colors. I think it would look great on corgis. Hopefully we could get some for baby Misa Work and the baby Shiba, because they're absolutely precious dogs. And I got to thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel be possible, and also throwing in a really cool idea. But I'm also happy to hear that you got the flag and the gift. I hope you enjoy the little sticker, because we said that on stream yesterday for sure. So now the secret's out. It was a little sticker that came with the package. But I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the flag. I hope you enjoy that autograph on the flag. And also I hope you like the packing, because it was a lot of effort to figure it all out. But still, with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also, by the way, I just saw on Twitter that we're getting recommended by a few folks. So big thanks to you as well. If you're a follower of us on Twitter and you're shouting out the Enforcer channel, I saw someone recommend us on a pretty big tag there just a moment ago, and I was like, oh, look at that. And also, I saw David Keith in the live chat say, thank you for the actual full coverage of the wars. Y'all are awesome. And I live in Tennessee, so y'all are my neighbors. And keep up the awesome information. And we are neighbors, David Keith. Not too far away, in neighboring states, top to the bottom. And it's good to hear that you enjoyed the coverage, and thank you very much for that. And Enforcer, do you have anything to add?
I gotta say, thank you for the kind words, David, and thank you. We really do appreciate it, and we try our best. And I hope that we were able to do a good job tonight. And also, Matthew, who shouted us out? Who was the person who did it?
Oh, it was one of our followers. They shouted us out on a big like tag, a big like thread. I'm using the wrong word. I mean thread when I say tag.
Oh, I see. That is still really cool. And also, let's see here. I'm looking around. Let's see here. I see. Yes, I see. Interesting. Very interesting indeed. But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And thank you so much once again for the support and helping this channel keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And yes, Hokey Redneck, Alabama does touch Tennessee. Or I hope, because I said that. So is it true, Enforcer? Tell me, is it true?
Yeah.
Let's look at it.
There's 4 states that touch Alabama: Tennessee, Georgia, Florida, and Mississippi. Those are the 4.
I was worried for a minute because my brain is operating on low energy mode right now because I didn't eat right before the stream. Sadly, I cooked up one of my meals that I've gotten from my meal kit, and I didn't cook it right, and I only had half of the meal, so I'm not that full tonight. So I'm getting confused about Alabama touching Tennessee, but yes, they are right there, right above us.
And you know what states Tennessee touches, Matthew?
Arkansas,
Missouri, Kentucky, Virginia, North Carolina, Georgia, Alabama, and Mississippi. So if you want to go places, live in Tennessee. You know what I mean? But with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to 5 bags of popcorn. And that's a lot. And they put in a $10 donation. They said, what you do is amazing. And that is their first ever super chat of the stream. Big shout out to them for that and helping support the channel. And Enforcer, what say you?
And a huge shout out to you. 5 bags of popcorn. I'd be full on like 1. 2 is a stretch. 3, I'd be vomiting. Enough to make stomachs burst. But beyond that, I gotta thank you for your first super chat to this channel ever. And thank you for saying what we do is amazing. We try our best to make it as good as we can. I think it's good. I don't think it's amazing, but hey, I'm glad to know that we met your criteria for what a stream should be. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support, and thank you for helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope I was able to address your kind words very well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Sarah Ratcliffe, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, Sarah, for that support. They said, thank you both for running the streams in LSA from the UK. And please take a question from the chat. And my favorite foreign country, I have to say, I'm not biased or anything, but the UK is my favorite. I feel at home in the UK. It's like our second home because our family is from Wales. But I love the place. It's wonderful. But Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank you so much for the support, Sarah Ratcliffe. And what's very interesting about Matthew's statement there is that actually, what's really cool is that we're actually from Wales primarily, but we're also from southern England, specifically the area of Devonshire, and we're also from Scotland and Ireland a little bit, but Scotland and Ireland are really the smallest parts represented in our family. The major parts are Welsh and English, and then we're also an incredibly small amount of Norwegian and Swedish, but Swedish is the smallest amount at 2%. Norwegian is at 8%. English and Welsh combined is around 76%, and then the rest of it's Scottish and Irish. So we are as Northern European as it gets, specifically as British as it gets, because once you add everything together, it's 90% British. Well, 90% British Isles from all of the different national groups. But beyond that, we like the United Kingdom for that reason, because we're really just British. Our family has somehow been in America for over 200 years, and we're still 90% British, which is really wild. But beyond that, I gotta say, thank you so much for enjoying the streams running, and thank you for being from the United Kingdom. It's a very cool country, very beautiful place when we've been, and I would go there again if we could. Hopefully we will be able to one day, and maybe we'll get to see all of the amazing folks over there. But still, thank you so much once again, and we will make sure to take a question from the chat. And so what do we got, Matthew?
And our question from the chat goes to JC the Music Man, who says, speaking of the U.S. military response to Russia, have you seen the Rapid Dragon palletized missile system? It's insane, and I'm glad it's ours.
Yes, I have. We actually covered that a year ago on this channel. Someone brought it up way back then, and it's really cool because, to explain it really quickly the best way I can, a C-130 cargo plane will carry a whole bunch of stealth missiles in a pallet in the back of the plane. They drop the pallet out of the back of the plane, the missiles fall out of the pallet, and then they flip out their wings, start propelling themselves through the air like a missile, pretty much, because it really is a missile with wings. Well, that's really just a cruise missile. But anyways, it then flies its way on into wherever it's supposed to go, attacking vital sites such as air defense sites, and many others. It is a wildly cool system. I have heard about it before, and I'm very happy that we have it and no one else does. And so with that, thank you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best I can. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Jonathan Scott, who puts in a 5 and says, please make a standalone video that BDAs all of Ukraine's strikes on Russian oil infrastructure, both in chronological order and explaining their impact.
That would be a really cool idea, Jonathan Scott. Maybe an idea for a long-form documentary. I would love to do that, but right now we're actually really tied up with everything else in the background, so the long-form documentaries have once again been sadly put on hold. But we will be trying to do that here in the near future. So with that, thank you so much once again, Jonathan. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Luke Mitchell, who puts in a 5 and says, how stupid can and what would have happened if Israel had thought it was Iran launching the missile, considering it was on the border and unannounced?
If the Israelis had thought that the Russian launch of the missile in Kasputin Yar was an Iranian missile, the Israelis may have responded with a nuclear attack of their own, possibly. That would be the most likely scenario. So that was fairly stupid when you look at it in that perspective. And so with that, I thank you so much once again for support, Luke Mitchell. Thank you for helping this channel to keep running, and I hope I addressed that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And going to the next one here, we have a $20 super chat from Wilness LSA Latvia once again. And thank you very much, Wilness. He says, a challenge accepted. I will bring our flag as close as possible to the Russian border. Hey, go to the border and wave it at them. Wave it at them and scream at them. Say, hey, look, LSA.
Go to the border checkpoint here at Pravada. I'm telling you to do. I'm just saying it would be really cool. Go to a border checkpoint like this. Go stand right there where the actual checkpoint crossing thing is, if you can, and then take a picture right there. Or, just get close to the border and take a picture there somewhere where there's a sign saying, you're entering the Russian Federation or something like that. That would be cool, man. We'd probably get put on the FSB hit list for real then. But I would be fine with that if we got to see the flag that close to the Russian border. That would be really cool. And thank you for the support, Wellness. And also, if you ever run into any trouble with the Russians, you make sure to tell them that the Leaf Spring Army has got your back all the way. And so with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well, and a really cool idea, Wellness. And if you do that, I'll be really impressed. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to CK Bold, who puts in a 5 and orders the regular, the number 5, and says, take a live chat question. And CK is very, very consistent with that support every single night for months. And a huge shout out to CK for that support. And this one is going to go to Uncovered Cube, who says, do you think Iran looks at Israel as the United States proxy in some sense and might attack us because we are backing them?
Well, Iran everyone who hates America always ends up looking at their other enemies as proxies of America. And so the Iranians do look at the Israelis as an American proxy. But the thing is that Israel is a completely independent country, that has done its own things, even against what the United States' best wishes have been in the area. So to answer that, yes, they do look at Israel like that, but the reality is very, very different. And so with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Nick LSA, who puts in the 5 and says, cheers.
Hey, thank you so much, Nick LSA. Of course, the first LSA couple with Carrie Ann. And thank you for the support tonight, Nick LSA, and help this channel to keep on running. And thank you for the kind words once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Merc Lady Bits, who puts in the 5 and says, why do all hot dog vendors look alike?
Oh, now I get the name. Oh my God.
Do you want me to read this one?
Wait, hang on. Let me go read it. Let me make sure to get it. Because I heard that and I was like, what the hell is that? Oh, yeah, you got to read that, Matthew. It's required by law.
It says, "Why do all hot dog vendors look alike? Because they are inbred."
Oh my god.
Oh, dear Lord. Take a live chat and thank you for covering Ukrainian news like it should be.
Goodness gracious. Oh my Lord.
Man, they coming in low.
Man, they coming in like sweet and low, but instead it's hot and low. You know what I mean? But still, thank you so much for the support.
Sweet and sour.
Man, that's not sweet and sour. That's just straight up sour right there. Goodness gracious. You know, there'll be another hit piece made on us again tomorrow. Waiter. Another hit piece. Another one. But beyond that, thank you so much for the support. Oh my goodness. I even hate saying the name. I will say this. We always want to be completely unbiased, raw, unfiltered. I cannot stand the guy. But that still feels brutal. But I do thank you for the support, Merc's Lady Bits. And I would have to say, great joke. I love the joke. And also, I gotta say, thank you so much for your first support to the channel ever. I get a kick out of that. I think that's pretty funny, because we've been told, I was told right before the stream, there was a hit piece made on us today, there was a hit piece made on us yesterday, and the day before that. And I'm really happy to see it, because you know you've made it to the top when you endlessly have haters, and people dedicate their entire lives to hating on you. But it's true about the whole inbred joke, because if he wasn't inbred, why in the world did he have to get rejected by you know, his real biological parents? What happened with that? Why? And then why the second group abandoned him? What's up with that? I mean, you gotta be pretty tough to deal with for something like that to happen. Really tough. And then the fin and the crack really doesn't help out much either. And on top of that giant hole in his hair that is like near the front side really needs to get that looked into. Maybe Bosley. But beyond that, I do have to think. Dr. Matthew's dying quietly in the mic. I can hear it. But
I was like dying to get my hand to the mute button. I got myself together for 5 seconds. I unmuted it and I started going at it again. Excuse me.
Man, dude, you're like that guy when the president was giving out like a Medal of Honor. And he was like, Ryan and his team were up on his time. You know what I'm talking about?
It's tiny little post.
Tiny little post.
Pounded.
That's a funny.
You gotta pull it together, man.
Oh my Lord. Goodness. This is
Damn,
by
that
far.
blew my ears
Yeah, I
out.
know, but this is by far the funniest one of the night. Oh my god, it's so brutal. I mean, like even for me, that like, because I'll tell y'all, I stay as polite and cordial as I can, except for when it comes to that guy. I will be completely unfiltered with that guy. But that is still even like that is down low. I mean, it's down low. But beyond that, we will make sure to take a live chat. And thank you so much for enjoying the coverage that we do, because we try not to delve into that unless if it's the question segment and someone brings it up like you do tonight, or we just bring it up as a joke. But we don't make entire hit piece streams about people we don't like in the Ukraine world, world. It's so stupid because there is a lot of better things to do, like our job, like covering the war. And so it seems kind of stupid to continuously beef. And I also find it funny that oh my god, there's just so much that you can find funny about that whole situation. Like for example, like I just got to share this because this was something I find really sad. Like I truly find it sad and also so stupid to bring up. So apparently the guy went on a date at some point, and we were told, and it apparently did not go well. I don't know what happened. I have no idea, because there wasn't a lot of detail shared from what we were told. But beyond that, this guy apparently fumbles a date. Have no idea how. And then he comes onto his stream that night, and he goes, I was on a date, and it went effing terribly. And it's like, okay, first off, that's pathetic. Second off, why in the world are you sharing this with everyone? You could have just not. Like, I don't know. Like, did something happen that was so bad he seriously thought he was about to get arrested, so he had to tell everyone on stream to get the story out first? I have no idea. But that was something that, like, I remember we were told, and then Matthew went over there and found it, and then he showed it to me. And I was busting out laughing. So I was like, why in the world would you even say that? You could have just gone without saying it.
Man, stop. The second it turns, I can't take it, man. I can't take it. Seriously, I can't take it.
Oh my Lord. But that's a lot of people saying detail. We don't have a lot of details. All I know is that it apparently didn't go well. And then the guy came onto his stream acting like the world was ending. And I don't get it because you know, like I just don't. I don't get that at all. I was like, oh my god, I was like, this is sad.
Man, the way it was described, I was like really curious. It was like the way it was described was like something horrific had occurred or something. I was like, this just didn't go bad. This went like terribly. Like this went like this was a war crime. It sounds
like the way it was described, it sounds like someone was possibly assaulted. Like I'm not even kidding. It was described that badly, and I was like, why would you say anything? Like, why? Well, you could just go without saying it. No one knew. And then you put it out there for the whole world. I don't know. I have no idea. Like, really, it absolutely baffles me. And then the other thing that baffles me is the never-ending hit pieces. Like, it's like you could just go on with your life like we do. You know, we just go on with our life. But it's...
Oh, man. It's his duty. It's his duty to keep harassing.
Dude, it's his duty to keep the grease traps full and the fryers hot. Because... like, it's not just us anymore. We're on a rotation now. He's got like a Rolodex of people he just like riffs on. And it's like, I don't know if anyone gets it or if anyone understands, but you know, it's like, just move on. It's like, really, I mean, like, seriously. I mean, it's so sad to see someone that is so mentally ill that they can't just move on from something, you know, like it.
And there's nothing worse than a dedicated idiot. When an idiot gets like fixated and obsessed over something and they cannot quit, like I honestly look at it in amazement. I look at it like, damn, if only I could be that dedicated on certain things I don't want to do. But that person's like dedicated on all the wrong stuff. It's like, how the hell do you even get that dedicated and obsessed? It's like you get stuck in a loop or something. Like these people that get obsessed with stuff and they're like slowly get more extreme over time as they get more obsessed, and then it eventually turns into a crime scene. Eventually, with someone being so obsessed they do something wild. It's like that.
You know what he reminds me of? Honestly, he reminds me of the Bjorn Stalker. Have you ever heard that story?
And I've never heard Bjorn Stalker.
So to give the short synopsis here, there was a singer from I think Iceland or something. Yeah, it was Iceland, called Bjorn, and she was a singer that this guy was obsessed with, and he ended up recording himself talking about how obsessed he was and also doing a whole bunch of questionable stuff, but I'm not going to talk about that. Anyways, the guy ended up stalking this woman so much that when she ended up publicly dating someone, he started talking about how he was going to go do terrible things to her. I mean, like anything you could imagine in the worst pits of your mind, that's what he was saying he was going to do to her. And then one day he just got so obsessed with it, he ended up going and buying a pistol, going home, and then recording himself, you know, taking himself on out. And like it was like this crazy wild obsession from beginning to end. And really, to be honest, that guy, the hot dog man, actually seems like he's like in the early phases or the mid phase of being a Bjorn stalker. Like it's like on that level, and it's really bizarre to watch someone like that, because especially when it's directed at you, like it is with the Enforcer Matt and me, because you're like, wow, this guy is like legitimately crazy and has mental issues. And
he's one to keep an eye on. Like, not, you know, you can joke and laugh, but it's like at the same time he's so obsessed. It's like you have to keep an eye on him to make sure he's not doing anything wild, because he said, you know, wild things in the past, like he's going to drag his nuts over our hometown and pay us a visit and stuff like that. It's like, I don't know now. It's like, you know, you can be crazy over there, but don't come over here.
You know, and a whole bunch of other crazy stuff, like the guy saying that he wants to physically beat us personally, you know, stuff, crazy things that normally would get classified as like attempted assault or something like that in the normal world, but because he's up in Minnesota land, way far away from us, there's not a lot that can be done until he gets into this state, if he ever did show up here. Hopefully he doesn't, because that wouldn't be good for him. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best I can for that $5 super chat, the $5 foot. But still, thank you so much for enjoying the way we cover the news. I hope you enjoyed that fun little rabbit hole that we had right there, and we will make sure to get a live chat. And also, one other funny thing, the Mercs Lady Bits, I have to make sure to say the whole name, that is really funny, is that when we talk about this kind of stuff on stream, like when we very rarely give it airtime, I will put money on it. Either there's going to be a warning stream tomorrow where the guy says we've been warned past tense, although we don't even know what he's talking about, or he's going to make a live stream right now, and he's going to start riffing on us on that whole stream. Like, that's going to be the whole thing dedicated to it. Guy's legitimately crazy. I mean, like, it's crazy to watch. Funny, but also a little scary at times. But anyways, let's get to that live chat.
So our live chat question for this one goes to Eugene Minton, who says, wouldn't the USA work with India to fight China if it came to that, and how would that change the dynamics?
And really reread that one again.
Wouldn't the USA work with India to fight China if it came to that, and how would that change the dynamics?
It certainly would. They're probably it's tough because the Chinese-Indian border is in the Himalayan mountain range, and also in a little bit of the Hindu Kush, although that's mostly in Afghanistan. Oh man, he said Kush. But beyond that, it would be really hard to fight China in a land war from India because the mountainous regions are incredibly treacherous and very hard to fight in. It would probably take a specialized group of mountain units or mountain assault units to be able to try and fight up there. So I have a feeling that India would probably help out a good bit with basing forces that the Americans have, but also India's in a very desolate area of China. There's not really a lot of population mass out here or industrial powerhouses to take over. So it'd be a grinding war in this region, really to not get a lot out of it. So I have a feeling that the United States would probably try and conduct, although this, in my opinion, unless if a lot of prep work was done in advance, would be a pretty tough thing to pull off. It would probably try and pull off a naval invasion somewhere, although that would be pretty tough to pull off as well. So with that, I hope that does address that live chat the best we can. And thank you so much once again, Mercs Lady Bits, for supporting this channel and helping it to be possible. And thank you so much for enjoying the way we cover the news. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And up next, Old Man Gibbs throws in a 5 and says, puff, puff, pass with the cigarette. Please take one from the chat.
Aw, man, I love puffing and passing. But beyond that, thank you so much for the support and help this channel to keep on running. And we will puff, puff, pass. And we will make sure to go and get one from the chat, Old Man Gibbons. So what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and this one goes to LSA Blithering Idiot, who says, did you know that Israel has 8 Patriot batteries while Ukraine has only 3? And does that seem right?
Oh yeah, largely. I mean, the Israelis bought theirs. The Ukrainians have had theirs given to them. So as far as the Israeli goes, I mean, they bought them fair and square, and Ukrainians has had theirs given to them fair and square. So I think it's fair. But I think that the Ukrainians should have more, and we should try and give them more, or hopefully the Ukrainians will be able to buy some at very discounted prices. But with that, I hope that does address that the best I can. And thank you so much once again for sponsoring that live chat, Old Man Gibb. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Arsenic, who puts in a 5 and says, has the flood in Russia gone up to 12 meters, meaning that the BMP 3 and 4 factory is flooded? Any news?
Oh man, sadly, I don't know how high the floodwaters have gotten. A lot of information is not being given to us by the Russian government about the flood and what's coming out of it. So sadly, I couldn't tell you how high the water's gotten, but if it did get that high, wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't that be nice that the BMP factory gets knocked out? I would love that, but sadly, we just don't know. So I'd have to declare ignorance on that at the moment. But with that, thank you so much once again for support. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Bruce Lee, who puts in a 5 and says, a bigger mess than the Russians, ? Iran, ? Chris's mom doing something interesting. And back to you, Marmot.
What? Wait a minute, what? Like, I'm having a hard time following that. Let me see here.
He said, is it a bigger mess? Is it the Russians, Iran, or Chris's mom doing something weird?
Oh, totally Chris's mom. It's totally Chris's mom, Bruce Lee. Rubbing the hot dog, that's definitely Chris's mom. That's 100% Chris's mom. And thank you so much for the support. I hope that does address that well. And back to you, Marmot, for the next one. But thank you once again for the support.
All right, and with that, it's back to me. I guess I'm the Marmot now. But anyway, so the next one goes to Ari Sweeney. Hello there. Hello. 5. It says, Bruce, $5 Friday. Count me in. Live chat question, please.
And, we're having $50 Friday and $5 Friday tonight. We're having $5 footlongs, and I don't know what $50 gets you these days. Like, not much. But still, thank you so much once again.
Man, it's like happy hour or something like that. But we don't have no drink.
Man, no drinks. We're drink free, sober.
Fresh out.
And some people brag. They're like, I've been sober for 5 days, and I'm like, I've been sober for my whole life. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding about that. I'm just kidding. But still, with that, let's make sure to grab a live chat in Ari Sweeney's honor. And so, Matthew, what do we got?
And this live chat, and we are actually running through most of our live chats with the super chest tonight.
No.
This one goes to You're Taking My Life. Oh my goodness, dramatic.
You're
They said,
taking
does
my
Ukraine have
life!
old... Oh, wow. Does Ukraine have old Soviet dumb bombs like the ones that Russia is turning into glide bombs? And can Ukraine make their own version of the glide bomb and special delivery it to the Russian trenches?
Yes, they could. They could probably do something like that, but the problem is that those kinds of air missions are incredibly risky. The planes could be lost, like we saw with the Russians, in very high numbers. But the Ukrainians do have the bombs, and they do have the ability to make those glide bombs. It's just that they don't really have a lot of aircraft to deliver the bombs with, or a lot of aircraft to lose trying to conduct those sorts of missions. So with that, I hope that does address that well. Thank you so much once again for sponsoring that question. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Wyatt Logan, who puts in a 5 and says, as always, thank you guys for your hard work. And thank you, Wyatt, for the kind words.
Hey.
He says, the Dark Ages are over, and congrats on the Short War summaries. And never stop the rabbit and the hole. Go LSA.
And I got to thank you so much for the support. And I got to tell you, the Dark Ages of the channel are truly over. I mean, they are way over. We actually, crazily enough, this is something we cannot believe. We have gotten 7 million views on this channel over the past 30 days, the past month of the channel. We've gotten 7 million views. That is actually crazy, because we actually have a system, well, at least on my YouTube account, called TubeBuddy, which allows us to see our analytics compared to any other channel we look at. And last night after the stream, I was like, well, how are we doing? And we went looking around, and we found out we're doing better than pretty much every single channel that has less than 800,000 subscribers as far as viewership and subscribership goes at this point. So the channel is absolutely doing amazing. It's not the Dark Ages. It went immediately from the Dark Ages and into the second golden age of the channel, which is crazy to think about. So right now, y'all are living in the greatest point in channel history, actually. Like, this is the greatest point in channel history as far as growth, viewership, and everything else goes. This is the greatest time. And I gotta say, thank you so much once again for support, Wyatt Logan. Thank you so much for enjoying the summaries, and we will never stop the rabbit holes. I never will, at least. I will keep doing them until I die. But nevertheless, long live the Lee Spring Army, and thank you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Zyper Sniper 1 once again, and he puts in a $10 donation, and huge shout out to you, Zyper, for that support. And he said here, I couldn't send the words from a super chat, but my words are, when I talked about the hit list, if one is on it, he said, then something won't happen for very long here, and he says he'll do something else, he'll hunt a little bit, if you know what I mean.
Man, he's going to be on the hunt. He's going to get him good. But I got to thank you so much for the support. Zyper Sniper, I hope you understand why we had to censor that a little bit, because YouTube doesn't like things like that, so sadly. But still, thank you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because folks like you help to make it possible. And I can't wait to see what you do. And so with that, thank you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang, puts in a 5. And says, did Iran move their forces at night, and they might be taking action at night and sleeping in the day?
And that is true. Usually, armed forces movements do actually happen at night, so that way they can try and mask the movements as best they can. So yes, they're most likely moving at night, but we don't know that information for sure. But still, thank you so much once again for support, AMX10 Speedy Bang Bang. I hope I addressed that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one goes to Badger Bro, who puts in a 5 and says, Enforcer, if you were putting the LSA anthem or vinyl records, what would you put on the front cover?
Great question, Badger Bro. Very good question. We've been thinking about that. Well, I've been thinking about that because this is just something I've been like, well, what would be cool? And as a cover, I would actually like to make it kind of like a picture of the Lee Spring Army. But the thing is, with the Lee Spring Army, is that we don't have a uniform. And I was thinking, wouldn't it be kind of cool if we kind of had a uniform? That's something that will actually probably never happen, because getting everyone in uniforms and stuff, not really my style at this moment. If we ever actually became a full-on organization that did our own work around the world, like humanitarian work, or even a volunteer fighting organization, that helps out in places like Taiwan or Ukraine as far as supporting the regular armies that exist inside those countries, that would be a really cool thing. And that would be when we probably would get a uniform for the channel, but that would probably be like past a million or several million subscribers, so way down the line. But if I had to make a cover, it probably would be a cover of soldiers of the Lee Spring Army in uniform. And I've had some ideas, usually revolving around the classic World War II style American uniforms, or even the classic World War II style British uniforms, because while a lot of people in the World War II era say the Germans had drip, I'm honestly going to disagree. I actually think the British were the drippiest in as far as the uniforms went in World War II. They had a thing going on there. I really do think they did. At least the officers certainly did. The enlisted, not so much. But the officers, though, I mean, they were dripped out, like, to the nines. Really, all the officers in World War II, except for the Soviets, were dripped out to the nines. The Soviets, though, had no drip. Dripless, simply. But that would be something cool I would like to do in the future, because I think that would be neat. I think that would be neat to actually start forming the Lee Spring Army into a full-on, real-life organization for good, not a actual like a paramilitary group. No, that's not the LSA's role. That's the role of the U.S. Department of Defense. That's the role of the British Ministry of Defense and every other country's proper armed forces. But what we could do is that we could maybe, you know, in an emergency like wartime, help out the regular army like an auxiliary kind of, you know, kind of like Dad's army in Britain in World War II. Or do things like if a disaster hits a country, we could mobilize the Lee Spring Army in those countries to go forward and help assist with aid and come up with our own ways to organize aid and relief efforts and things like that. That would be really cool, and probably a way that the Lee Spring Army could have a massive impact on the world, even larger than what we've done through the Sunday night fundraisers. That would be incredibly cool. But still, all of that is way down the line. So sadly, not right now, but if I had to make a cover for a record right now, it probably would be just the LSA Eagle on the cover with a black background or the blue-black background like the flag. And so with that, thank you so much once again for the support. I hope that does address that fairly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one is going to go to the Badger Bro once more. Who we just read off. We just read off that super chat, by the way. Sorry about that, Badger Bro. Thank you very much once again. The next one goes to Uncovered Cube, who puts in a 2 and says LSA.
And LSA! And thank you so much, Uncovered Cube, for your 20th super chat ever. And thank you for throwing in an LSA, the first super chat of the night. And thank you so much once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And the next one goes to Carl Vincent, who puts in a 2 and says, love you both from Wales. And hey, Wales!
Alan, Chris's mom, let me on that. Thank you so much for the support, Carl Vincent. And we love you all the way from America. You may as well be family for us, being Welsh and all. But still, with that, thank you so much once again for support, and great to know that there is some Welsh representation in the Lee Spring Army. And so with that, I hope that does address that well, and we are on to the next one.
And for our last one, big shout out to Butchie777, who put in a $2 donation and did not leave a comment on this one. But Butchie, thank you very much for always supporting the channel Big League, and we appreciate it very much.
He threw in, Matthew, the best way to round out the super chat segment. A hot dog.
A super sticker?
Yeah, it was a hot dog. Oh, man.
Aw, hot diggity dog.
Man, I'm going to expose them tomorrow for the 90th time on God. Waiter.
Whoa, hold on, Jamal. Don't warn us.
Whoa, Jamal. Don't pull out the 9. But waiter. Another hit piece. But anyways, with that, it's time for us to get into the question segment. But due to time constraints, and also probably due to us being wildly low on live chat questions,
we'll have 3.
Okay, we're only going to be answering 3. So with that, we are on to the third to last live chat of the night.
And tonight, we have the Morse code decoders tonight. Like always, actually. They said it's Cliff Simonson, Mark Hodges, Earl Benu, Paul Schultz, Kevin J., Rumpelstiltskin, David Millsaps, and Toxic Bananas. They said Enforcer LSA Signal Corps reports tonight's Morse is the LSA will step boldly into the future unknown. Long live the LSA, and the LSA will never die.
And that's the sound of money! And y'all hit it dead on the nail. That is the Morse code message of the night. And I gotta congratulate y'all for getting that correct. Actually, that first line in the Morse code message is very close to being one of the lines in the stanzas for the LSA anthem. But I will be making sure to try and publish the LSA anthem, at least in full. It's not actually that long. It's only 2 stanzas. It's just that the 2 stanzas are repeated twice, which gives it a minute and 30-second long runtime for the anthem. I tried to make the anthem short, so that way it was really quick, but also really good. So I will be making sure to get that out to all of y'all, but thank y'all for deciphering the Morse code message and getting that dead on the nail tonight. And of course, long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die. And with that, we are on to our third to last question of the night.
And this one is going to go to AF Kaplan, who says, could this test launch of an ICBM have been a way to distract the Russian people from all the infrastructure that's falling apart in the country at this time?
Maybe. That's actually another reason they could have conducted it, is to try and distract from how badly Russia is doing. It's a lot like North Korea doing the same thing. So with that, I hope that does address that fairly well. And we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And let's see here. The one from Arsenic here that having the live chat is second to the last one. It's actually the one that Arsenic put in the super chat as well. So thank you, Arsenic, for putting in that question. I hope we did address it well earlier as well. So with that, Enforcer, we only have one question left.
What? But we were supposed to have two. I'm just kidding. But with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who was the lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And this viewer is Uncovered Cube, who says that didn't we announce a new nuclear weapon not that long ago to basically intimidate Russia and our enemies, so that Russia showing the have nukes too is showing that they're really getting worried?
Let's see here. Pentagon announced, let's see, that it was pursuing a new nuclear weapon to be known as the B-6113 gravity bomb. And let's see here. Let me see here. The gravity bomb. That sounds a little interesting. Let me make sure that my terminology is correct here.
Let's call it the anti-gravity bomb.
Let's see here. It is a thermonuclear gravity bomb. Y'all might be really interested to know what a gravity bomb is. Matthew, what do you think a gravity bomb is, considering how cool and badass that sounds?
Let me guess. It falls to the center of the Earth because of gravity, eh?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a normal bomb like this one. So what it is, it's an aircraft-borne dumb bomb, pretty much. This is it. That's the B-61 right there. So it's literally just a bomb. We announced that in 2023. The F-35 was actually approved just, I think, a few weeks ago to actually carry the B-61, which is brand spanking new. But also, wait, hang on. Let me look at this really quickly. No. That variant that was announced in 2023 is fairly new. But this B-61 tactical nuclear bomb, or thermonuclear bomb, this thing's been around since 1963, so there's really nothing new at all about the bomb itself. It's just really a modernized version of the bomb. Apparently, let's see, hang on, I want to make sure that we find the most modern information on the B-61 possible, and let's see here, so, mod, date, noted, first production, 11/21. Doesn't give us the year. Wait, it does actually. This is 2021. So let's see. This one doesn't even have it announced. It's just going to be a few dozen of them though, and I think that's probably the B-61 variant that we're talking about right now. So going off of that, I would have to say it's not really that shocking, that scary, but what's scary about it is that it can be carried by an F-35, which will be devastating and scary for the Russians because they don't really have a way to shoot down an F-35 at the moment. And so with that, I hope that does address that final question of the night incredibly well. And with that, that is the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank all of y'all so much once again for watching the stream tonight. We've been entirely honored by each and every one of y'all being here. Tonight at the peak, we had a whopping 7,000 people here and 48,000 people who've watched this stream before it ended. We are always entirely honored to know that the Leaf Spring Army continues to find the Enforcer to be its home. It will always be its home. And we are always appreciative of the massive, boundless, countless amounts of people who continue to find this channel to be their primary source of news, not just on Ukraine, but events around the globe. We are always greatly appreciative of the high honor that y'all bestow upon us with y'all's trust, and we thank y'all all so much in the tens of thousands for being here with us again tonight. If you are brand new to this channel and you did enjoy it, please make sure to hit the like button and also subscribe as well. These streams run every single day, except for Monday at 10 p.m. Eastern Time every single night. As long as I am alive, this stream will run. Matthew, if he dies, it still will run, but I'll be very sad at that point because Matthew is a great addition to the stream. But beyond that, the Leaf Spring Army will...
If I die...
Man, if you ever die, you know, like a car accident, God forbid, or anything like that, this stream still would run. I'd just be crying through it. You know what I mean? Like, you know, actually, I'd take a day off. But beyond
if anything ever happens, I didn't do it. I'm making that clear right now.
man, if anything happens to Matthew, neither of us wanted that to happen because he's going to be here. Hopefully, he's going to be here as long as I am. Hopefully, even longer. But still, with that, thank you so much once again, everyone, for watching. And as long, like I was saying just a second ago, as long as we're both alive in reality, we will keep this thing running until the wheels fall off, until there's nothing left in the world to cover, until Armageddon comes, or until we both die of old age, one or the other. But we still greatly appreciate every single one of y'all being here with us tonight. Y'all can always count on us to be running these streams, hopefully making short war videos in the middle of the day as well. And also, Eric S. said, just send in some love. Take a question from the chat. And I thank you for the support, Eric. But the sad thing is, we can't take one from the chat. We're out of live chats. We're literally out of them. We ran out of them just a second ago. But I do thank you so much for sending some love our way. And thank you so much once again for the support. But with that, it is time for us to end. Good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, and long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never die.
And good night, folks, and thank you all for another great stream once again tonight. And of course, be sure to join us tomorrow for the Short War Summary and the stream once again at 10 p.m. Eastern. Maybe Iran will do something tomorrow, maybe they won't. Stay tuned to find out. It's like the best sitcom ever here with Iran. But with that being said, Slava Ukraine, Heroam Slava. And thank you all for watching again tonight. We appreciate everyone in the LSA, and the LSA is the best community on YouTube, bar none. And good night.
Yes. The Lee Spring Army sends its regards.